going to call Terry up to the stage and let her have the microphone, and she's going to sing the national anthem. But first we'll do the pledge, so please rise for that. Remain standing, and then I'd like to do a recognition at the conclusion there. So you're going to have the microphone and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. These are hard acts to follow. Thank you so much for the first responders, dispatchers, everybody who works to keep our community safe. I would say we'll wait for the music to cue me in, but it's in my head. Oh, see, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
My wife, it's okay. So please be seated. At this time, I would like to have some folks stand. Anybody who's active or retired U.S. military, all branches of the service, if you would stand. And I'm going to have ask all of the current first responders in all the various aspects, and any that are retired from that capacity, to stand as well. I know there's some more out there. Okay, so a round of applause for all of you. So I think we have the preliminaries pretty well covered here. I'm not going to do introductions on the stage. There's nameplates there. I think the folks are pretty well known as to who the cast of players is. A couple of things on rules of the meeting. I look out there. Most of you are very familiar with how we operate meetings around here. So for me to spend a lot of time going over the rules, I think is inappropriate. Cell phones, please silence them, put them on vibrate mode. It's very disruptive to the meeting. Certainly if you need to take a call, get yourself out to the lobby, but do not take any calls, please. It's very distracting. We've got a couple issues here to talk about tonight that I know are very emotionally driven. And I'm going to ask that we all respect each other the way we were taught as children, common courtesy, refrain from getting into attacks on personalities, We have a pretty small town here, and the last thing we need to do is go after individual people on the floor of town meeting. So keep it to the business of the town. Let's refrain from attacks and negativity. We'll call you on it. General rule that we followed in the past is 2 minutes for each speaker. I'm usually pretty tolerant on that, but a lot of you are less tolerant than I am. Do not expect the fellow citizens to take a lot of time speaking to an issue. Objectives to give everybody a chance that wants to be heard to do so. So with that, before we go to the reading of the warrant, we've got some non-voters on the floor of the town meeting, and I'm going to read the list of people that I have. If there's any additional, we need to identify those and add them to this list. So we have Michelle Hill as a treasurer, collector, clerk, Ben Coyle and Dave Burson, town council, Lieutenant Landis from the Southwick Police Department, Deputy Richard Stefanowitz from the Southwick Fire Department, Jen Willard from the Superintendent of Schools, and Steve Presnall, the business manager for the Southwick Town Granville Regional School District. Are there any other non-voters sitting among us? Yes. Okay. And Diane. Anybody else? Okay, and one up there?
Barbara Hobson.
Barbara Hobson from the Department of Agriculture. So may I have a motion to allow those people to sit on the floor of the town meeting for purposes of discussion, their resources to us. Obviously, the employees serve us in a variety of capacities. Can I hear a motion? And a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. That carries. At this time, I'm going to recognize Town Clerk Michelle Hill for the reading of the warrant for the annual town meeting.
Annual town election, Tuesday, May 14, 2019, at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Southwick Town Hall, 454 College Highway, for precincts 1, 2, and 3. Annual town meeting, Tuesday, May 21, 2019, at 7 p.m. at the Southwick Regional High School, 93 Feeding Hills Road, in the auditorium. To either of the constables of the town of Southwick and the county of Camden, greetings.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we dispense with reading of the warrant in its entirety and act on the articles individually.
Do I hear a second? Motion made and seconded to dispense with the reading of the entire warrant at this time. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. So finish that up, please.
Given under our hands at said Southwick this 3rd day of May, the year of the Lord 2019, Select Board Joseph J. Deedy, Chairman, Russell S. Fox, Vice Chairman, Doug Wilson, Clerk.
All right, thank you, Michelle.
Sorry, I listened to. Pursuant to written warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Southwick by posting up attested copies of the same at 3 public places in said town 7 days before the date thereof, as within directed, signed by the constable, which was the police officer of the day, and signed by myself, Michelle Hill, the town clerk, posted at the town hall, post office, and library.
All right. Sorry for the quick draw there. Article 1 has already been transacted. It was the annual town election held last week, and now the results have been announced. So we're going to proceed to Article 2. Unless there's objection, I'm going to bundle Articles 2, 3, 4, and 5 together. They're housekeeping. They basically authorize the Board of Selectmen to do the things that they are authorized to do They show up on the warrant every year in this format. So if you would, give me a motion to consider Articles 2 through 5 as an omnibus motion. And a second. Any discussion on Articles 2 through 5? A question, a comment, don't understand what it is. Anything from the floor on Articles 2 through 5? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. That's carried unanimously. That brings us to Article 6. And at this time, I am going to step down as town moderator. Given my involvement in Article 6 especially, I think it's best for all involved that I not preside over that article. I would actually like to be able to speak to it. So at this time, is there a motion to appoint Michelle Hill, our town clerk, as the acting town moderator for Articles 6 and 7? And I hear a motion and a second. Does everybody understand what we're doing? I'm handing over the gavel on Articles 6 and 7. As soon as we get by 7, I will return and handle the remainder of the meeting. So with that, all in favor of appointing Michelle Hill as our acting town moderator for Articles 6 and 7, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And that's carried unanimously.
Good evening. Moving on to Article 6, I read that the town vote to amend, delete Chapter 24, Section 1 of the Code of Town of Southwick to provide for the election of Finance Committee members and to take any other action thereof requested by a petitioner. Do I have a motion? Motion. Do I have a second? Second. All right, this time I'm going to give the opponents an opportunity to speak. Is Mrs. Pratt here? Would you like to speak?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Sorry. My name is Kelly Parker. I live at 25 Castle Street. Sorry, this is the first time I've ever done this. The petitioners would like, do I have to read the motion? I don't. Oh, okay, sorry. The petitioners would like to express sincere gratitude to both the town moderator and the current Finance Committee members for their dedication and their service. This warrant article seems to have stirred up negativity from the Finance Committee members and their supporters, as well as some false assumptions that this was not our intent. The people would simply like to have the ability in the future to elect those that make the financial decisions regarding how their tax money is spent. Passage of this bylaw amendment will enable the voters of Southwick to decide the membership of the Finance Committee. Currently, over 70% of the boards and committee members in town are appointed by the Select Board. I just want to say, I volunteered for things before, and I really do appreciate people's service and volunteer to go beyond, your regular job and to, do things beyond your regular job. I do appreciate your service. I definitely do. And I read the town moderator and his application for services and whatnot, and I like the way he speaks to people and how the questions he asks, and I think all of you do a great job. And I don't know any of you well enough to hold a grudge or to attack anyone or to have any of those feelings. So please do believe me when I say I really appreciate your service and what you do. I just think that, you know, when you include people in the decision-making process, they tend to be more invested in it. You know, and I think when Abraham Lincoln said, "For the people, by the people," in the Gettysburg Address, that's what he was talking about. So, you know, voting and choosing our finance committee members, then the whole community gets to decide, you know, and pick the people instead of just one person. And that's not a comment on, you know, the job people is currently doing at all. I don't feel that way. You know, we elect the Park and Recs folks, and that, you know, I think Park and Recs, you know, if I was going to be on a committee, that would be one I would want to do, because I don't know a ton about finances and stuff. But I think the finance committee is even more important. So, you know, if we elect the Park and Recs folks, I think, you know, electing the finance committee is just as valid. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is my first time doing this. So with that said, I did overstep the fact that we did have a motion, we did second it, but we actually have a motion that was presented to us that needs to be read tonight. So if one of the petitioners could please stand up and read that motion so everyone is clear as to what the intent is moving forward. Thank you.
So the motion that current chapter 24, section 24-1 of the code of the town of Southwick be deleted and the following inserted in its place. Chapter 24, section 24-1, members' election terms. There shall be a finance committee of 7 members who shall reside in the town and be registered voters therein. Their members shall be elected by the voters at the annual town election for terms of 3 years each, beginning after the initial election of 2 members for 1-year term, 2 members for a 2-year term, and 3 members for a 3-year term at the next annual town election. Any vacancy occurring shall be filled by appointment by the select board, but only until the next annual town election, at which time the vacant position shall be filled by election by the registered voters of the town of Southwick for the balance of the unexpired term, if any, otherwise for the new term. Requested by the petition. Explanation: Massachusetts General Law, Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 39, Section 16 provides for the election of Finance Committee members by the voters rather than appointment by the town moderator as is currently done in the town of Southwick. Passage of this bylaw amendment will enable the voters of Southwick to decide the membership of the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm now going to recognize the moderator for some comments.
Thank you. I guess I better step back away from that a little bit. First, I'd like to do a poll of everybody who's present. First question, how many of you have ever volunteered to serve on the Finance Committee? Asked me, hey Jim, I'd like to be considered to be on the Finance Committee. Please raise your hands. Okay.
There was an opportunity to do that.
Well, I've announced it at the end of most town meetings, Dennis, but and it's in the town report.
Fair question.
You folks raise your hands up there. So, okay, and the lady over here, and help me with your name.
Karen Mayo?
Yes, we talked last year, didn't we?
I was asked about a year ago to serve on the finance committee, but because of my job commitment, I couldn't give that much time.
This is statement time, so there is no engaging conversation.
Okay. So, the next question is, who among us would like to run for election to the Finance Committee? Okay, I see 4, 5. Okay, Dennis would like to, so I see 6. Any on the stage? Okay. So, here's my point. This is hard work, and I was very disappointed not to be able to appoint Mr. Mayo last year. We had a great conversation. She's eminently qualified, but I think the amount of work and meetings and so forth scared her off. And this is not glorious work, folks. And I don't think we're going to have 14 people step forward willing to run for election to this committee. I don't think the petitioners have proven that. So that's my first point. Second point, I'm disappointed because we see what's going on in Washington, D.C., attack politics, the politics of the negative. One side gets the upper hand, they've got to go back and destroy the other. We don't need that kind of politics here in this town, and I'm very disappointed. We should be pulling together, trying to encourage more people to serve in town government, not trying to get rid of people that we had a disagreement with. That's so Washington, D.C. I'm disappointed. So last comment, look at all the energy, the expense to hire attorneys to write these motions and so forth, the Facebook activity, the amount of time. And boy, we've got so many better things to do in this town. Come out for the Citizens Dollars for Scholars. We need your help over there. Or the Southwick Civic Fund serving people with dinners. Let's channel our efforts in the right direction and not be going after our fellow citizens who have made the commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. At this time, I'd like to recognize the Select Board if they have any comments before I go out to the floor.
Doug Moglen, 5 Hidden Place. I'd just like to echo what Mr. Putnam said. I think we witnessed an election last week. 300 people came through the polls. There was one contested race on the ballot. I was at meetings for party meetings. It's nigh impossible to get people to come out and run for office. People will, however, apply and ask to be appointed to other boards. It's an easier process. It doesn't make people hold themselves out to standing for election and all the stuff that comes with that. It has its upsides and downsides, but I agree with Mr. Putnam. And I also, the work of the Finance Committee serves as a check and balance on the Board of Selectmen. That's why it's appointed by the town moderator. And regardless of what was said, Mr. Putnam's done yeoman work for as long as I've lived in this town now, of having a very unbiased, balanced, thoughtful Finance Committee. And we've had great discussions over the years. There's been, very vigorous arguments back and forth, but always with the best interests of town at heart. And I don't see a need to change that process here. And like I said, last week's ballot, you are not going to find, I don't think, 14 people to have a contested race for Board of Selectmen. I think you'll have a tough time to find, an unbalanced slate to run for Finance Committee. So that's my take on it. And the fact of the matter is, I can't believe that for folks that have been doing this a while, I give some newcomers a pass, that they weren't aware that the moderator appointed the Finance Committee and of what the process was to be considered for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moglen. Now I'm going to open it up for the floor. What I will do is go from one section to another, and then come up to the stage. So at this time, I'd like to start over there. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Anybody in the center? We'll start with you, ma'am.
Jean Rhea Powell, North Mining Road. I agree with Mr. Moglen. I was the 31st person to vote last week, and it was 12 o'clock. There was no new faces running. Anytime I have a question or I want something answered or I don't understand how our town politics works, I go write one of those people on the board or I ask one of the people here in town. As you can see, there's nobody here to vote. Our community is not vested in what people are vested in. Nobody comes out to vote. Nobody's going to read the school budget. Nobody cares what's on these papers, except maybe the 150 people that showed up tonight. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And I think that the folks on the board, finance, CPC, all of them, they give a lot of time and effort that a lot of us do not want to donate. Half the people can't even show up here tonight for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3-hour meeting. And we need to respect that. And if you have a problem with it, I think we need to be less sophomoric and more adult and approach it at a different venue. I don't think we need to poke at each other. I don't think we need to kick the dog, poke the bear. I think these people are doing a fine job. I think we spend our money recklessly in this community on a lot of things. And I'm not quiet, and I always speak up about it. And I think that some of these articles are just ridiculous. They're a waste of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone up to the left wants to speak?
Over here.
Oh, we're coming back. Anybody on the stage? Back to the center, I saw a couple hands. Sir?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Ballard, 44 Lexington Circle. And I'm going to put a little different spin on this. First of all, thank you for letting me speak. And second of all, I appreciate our town governance structure because it lets an article like this come in front of us and lets us make a decision. Tracy, I thought you presented well, okay, and that you had an opportunity to do that. But I'm going to stay with the theme of governance for right now, okay, and because I respect that, and I respect how our town has evolved over the time that I've been here. I've lived in town for 25 years. I'm not a resident. Wasn't born and raised in Southwick, but I was here what I think is a very important time when our town evolved, because we grew. We had communities that surrounded, and we built developments, and our town grew. Okay, we had more kids going to school. We had more people in our community. So, did we do the right thing through our governance structure to ensure fiscal responsibility? I think we did. I absolutely think we did. Not just now, but for the last 25 years. That's because our governance structure has won, and it has proven to be effective. And that appointing a finance committee has proven to be effective during a time which I think the town could decline a little bit because of that growth, because we see it. So I applaud what we've done for 25 years. I'm going to stay with three things that shows our fiscal responsibility. First of all, our schools, the largest budget item that we have, and probably the most important thing we've had as our town has grown, to make sure that our children that have gone from the grade school to the middle school to high school and walked out that door became productive citizens. They went to college or they joined the workforce. Because we have been fiscally responsible to make sure our schools have kept pace. Who bears some of that responsibility for our schools keeping pace? It's our finance committee and the structure that was put in place. Second of all is the safety of our town. Our finance committee has allowed the safety of our town to progress through the police department and first responders. They've allowed funds, remember, on a fixed budget, and allocating funds the right way for our town to be safe. I don't think anybody sits in here that doesn't feel safe walking in your streets, or driving the streets, or maybe riding a bike on a trail. We're safe because of fiscal responsibility and the governance structure that we put in place. Last is infrastructure. We've grown this town. We know we have communities all over surrounding this town. We can go from point A to point B through the roads and through what we've done. Now there's times, sure we can say some of those roads are a little crusty. Remember, they have a responsibility and they have to allocate funds the right way. But we can go from point A to point B in all kinds of weather because they've been fiscally responsible for the infrastructure of this town as we've grown. So I'm going to try to respect this 2-minute thing. Do I feel that our town has done the right thing?
Sir, I'm going to ask you to wrap it up in about 15 seconds. Thank
We'll
you.
do. Do I think the town's done the right thing from the government side? Absolutely. Why change now? Why change now? When we've done everything right. Take the proven winner. Don't vote for hope. Hope's not a strategy. Hope for change here is not a strategy. Do the right thing. Stay in with the proven winner and the governance structure that's been put in place now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Hi, Tracy, South Columbus Street. And all I have to say is, the moderator is doing a great job, and we've had so many problems getting the ballots full. They beg constantly to get people to run, and yet nobody is willing to run. And all I have to say to that is, if we don't get the people to run, what's going to happen? The selectmen are going to have to put people on the board. We have a moderator who gets elected, and it puts a little bit more balance in the whole process by having the moderator do the finance committee and letting the selectmen do their job. And what you're going to do is put more value, I guess, on the selectmen. And, the moderator gets elected too. So, think about this when you're doing this, because we do not have enough people who are willing to run. It's just proven time and time again in the elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Michelle Pratt, 152 Berkshire Ave. I just want to reiterate actually what Kelly had said. The only place I heard negativity, the only place I heard about attacks were for things on social media that the petitioners didn't put there. It was people perceiving that that's what this process was about, and it's not. We're very appreciative of moderators' work for our town over all these years. We're very appreciative of the FinCom's time and effort and decisions. Never once did we criticize, never once did we talk about disbanding. So all of these things are kind of coming from a place that we're a little perplexed about where they're coming from. We never talked about taking things apart. We never talked about people weren't fit or people weren't making good decisions. It just never happens. These things are kind of being created. So I just wanted to be very clear. When we said we're very gracious, we are very gracious to your dedication and service. We merely want to have our voices heard on this particular issue. And I don't think that having signatures to become elected, putting up some signs and maybe some postings on social media should deter you from entering this process. I hope that you will consider your value, your service to the town. I don't appreciate being threatened, and I don't appreciate scare tactics in regard to this, and I don't think other people in this room appreciate that either. So I think that's where the negativity has come from. I just wanted that to be recognized. Again, though, my takeaway is thank you.
Thank you. Can I go back to the center? I'm going to entertain one more time. Anyone to the left? Anyone to the right? Anyone behind me? I will be coming back. Yes. I now recognize Linda.
Linda Battle, 44 Lexington Circle. What I want to say in response to a comment made that we just want our voice to be heard, it's a democratic situation here. Your voice is heard. Your voice is heard on the floor. Your voice is heard when you go in to vote. That's where your voice is heard. To me, not just because I sit here, but the entire time I have lived in this community, I have respected everybody and the process itself. The process is not broken. You have someone who is very diligent about how they appoint people to this board, and I think that needs to be respected. People's voices are heard. They're heard all over right now. I'm going to say, if it's not broken, why are we trying to fix something that's working just fine?
Thank you. There's a gentleman who had his hand in the air, I believe, sitting in the middle. Did you still want to speak? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Hi, Chelsea Pratt, 152 Berkshire Avenue.
So I think the thing that we're all looking for here is accountability. And I think when there are elected positions rather than appointed positions, we have that sense that people will hold some, you know, respect for what we're looking for as a community. If they're thinking we're just going to get reappointed next year, then that, or whatever their term ends, then that's kind of giving them an easy off. If we are the people to elect them, to have that say, then they're maybe more likely to listen to us because they don't want us to then not elect them again. So I think that would help us to get what we really want as a community. And we do have a lot of time and energy invested to this because we really care. And I think that was touched on earlier. So I want to thank you all again.
Thank you.
I'm David Lori from Congamon Road. I've just got a couple of things to say. I don't hear anything bad about our finance board, about our selectmen, and everybody seems pretty positive, so I don't see what the need is to change. I am also on the Park and Rec, and I know somebody over there mentioned about wanting to be on the Park and Rec. We had 2 seats open this time. Nobody opposed myself or the other person running. I mean, people always want to run, but nobody actually gets out and runs. Our finance board I've dealt with multiple times on the Park and Rec board. They've always been tough. They beat me up sometimes, but they always say, we're doing our job. And I don't feel bad about it, but that's the way it works. I think it's a great bunch of people, and if things are going so well and you're happy with them doing their jobs, I don't know why we should have them change doing their jobs. We're never going to get 7 people to run and take over all 7 positions. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Mr. Moderator.
I'd like to quickly clarify one issue. It's been insinuated that they make decisions, the Finance Committee makes decisions. That's dead wrong. You, the town meeting, makes the decisions. They can't appropriate any money. This is a misnomer that there's accountability. You know, we proved it as recently as March. They recommended no. What did the town meeting? 9 out of 10, a 90% margin, voted yes. All they can do is study and recommend. They have no fiscal authority in this town, and we need to be cognizant of that. They are a study and a recommending body, not an appropriation body. So keep that in mind as you proceed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Dennis.
Is it 7 or is it 14 members? I've heard both tonight, and I'm very confused as to who's appointed and how many are actually.
Do you want to state your name and your address?
Dennis Clark, 75 Fred Jackson Road.
Thank you. I'm being told 7.
It's 7, the article as read is for a 7-member board. I think the number 14 was if you had a Democrat and a Republican running on the ticket, you'd have 7 times 2, 14 candidates running in a partisan election. I think that's where the 14 came from.
So there's only 7, currently there's only 7 on the board.
That is correct. Any other questions, comments? Then we are going to take a vote. All in favor by saying yes.
Yes.
Or aye. We're going to do a redo, excuse me, this is my first. So again, we're going to take a vote, and all those in favor by saying aye. Aye. All those not in favor, nay. No. Nay. Okay. It does not pass. I can have Paul count on the left, Jessica on the right, and Mike in the center. Thank you for bearing with me. So at this time, if you're in favor for Article 6, please raise your hand. For it, if you're for Article 6. Paul? Jessica? 18? Mike? 30? All those not in favor, raise your hand. And Mike? At 48 to 82, the article does not pass. Moving on to Article 7. That the town vote to amend, delete Chapter 60, Section 1 of the Code of the Town of Southwick to provide for the election of the 4 members of the Community Preservation Committee currently appointed by the Select Board and to take any other action thereof requested by the petitioners. Do we have someone to read the motion? Michelle.
The motion is that the current Chapter 60, Section 60-1 of the Code of the Town of Southwick be deleted and the following inserted in its place. And I apologize ahead of time for the length. Establishment. There is hereby established a Community Preservation Committee consisting of 9 voting members pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law 44B, Section 5. The composition of the committee, the number to be elected, the appointing authority, and the term of the office for the committee members shall be as follows. 1 member of the Conservation Commission as designated by the Commission, 1 member of the Historical Commission as designated by the Commission, 1 member of the Planning Board as designated by the Board, 1 member of Park and Rec Commission as designated by the Commission, 1 member of the Housing Authority as designated by the Authority, and 4 members who shall be elected by the voters at the annual town election, and who shall reside in the town and be registered voters therein. Each member of the committee shall serve for a term of 3 years or until the person no longer serves in the position or on the commission, board, or authority as set forth above, whichever is earlier. The initial term of the 4 persons elected by the voters at the next annual town election shall be 1 person for 1 year, 2 persons for 2 years, 3 persons for 3 years terms at the annual town election. Should any of the commissions, boards, or authorities who or which have appointing authority under this chapter be no longer in existence for whatever reason, that position that would have been appointed shall therefore be elected by the voters, and whomever is elected must be a resident of and registered voter in the town of Southwick. Any member of the committee may be removed for cause by his respecting appointed authority after hearing. Any vacancy occurring in the committee from any cause shall be filled for the remainder of the unexpired term by the commission, board, or authority that made the appointment. Such appointment shall be made not less than 21 days following notice of such vacancy. Any vacancy occurring in one of the positions elected by the voters shall be filled by appointment by the Select Board, but only until the next annual town election, at which time the vacant position shall be filled by election by the registered voters of the town of Southwick for the balance of the unexpired term, if any, otherwise for the new term.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Michelle, we just need some clarification. If you can read over B one more time and clarify the number to be in years as far as they are up for election?
Certainly. The initial terms of the 4 persons elected by the voters at the next annual town election shall be 1 person for 1 year, 2 persons for 2 years, 1 person for 3-year terms. Thereafter, these members shall be elected for 3-year terms at the annual town election.
Thank you. Just out of clarifying, if I can have a second to that again. Second. Okay, we're going to move forward with discussion. At this time, I'm going to recognize the select board for any comments. Again, proponents, yourself, if you'd like to make any comments at this time.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to ask folks to please vote yes on Article 7. Passage of this bylaw amendment will allow the voters of Southwick to decide who 4 of the 9 Community Preservation Committee members are, instead of the Select Board. Currently, the Select Board appoints over 70% of the members of boards and committees in town. This article provides voters with a direct means of selecting some of the committee members. It increases the opportunity for citizens to participate on the committee, improves the accountability of committee members to voters. It can improve visibility and understanding of the town's Community Preservation Act implementation. Elected members will have to share their qualifications and their reasons for serving on the committee with voters. This committee can be more representative of the community interests and desired use of tax dollars. The North Pond Project exemplifies the rationale for this warrant article. This costly but critically important project was conceived in 2016. Over subsequent years, 3 members from the same family and a select board member's wife were the select board appointments, plus 1 other new member. These brand new members, 3 of whom on their very first committee meeting voted to appoint the friend and family member as chair of the CPC without the presence of the chairman at the time. The same group of new committee members voted against the North Pond Project repeatedly. It's your money to be used as indicated on the committee charter. The North Pond Project hit every single marker of what Community Preservation Act funds are designed to provide. The chairman stated there were no other competing projects for these funds, yet they voted against the project with no real explanation or debate. You've already put your 3% surcharge of your tax money into this fund. You attended many meetings, you advocated in person and on social media, and rallied around this project in a way that this town has rarely, if ever, seen. You were still not given the opportunity to decide on how your money was spent. So the result is, you now have an increase, although very tiny, on your tax bill. It's difficult to understand how members of this committee failed to bring this opportunity to vote to you. And this article proposes a way to safeguard against this happening in the future. In closing, to pull a Game of Thrones quote, maybe the decision about what's best for everyone should be made by everyone.
I'm now going to open it up for discussion. Anybody wish to make a comment or ask a question? Raise your hand. This lady right here in the center.
Laura Stopa, 3 Island Pond Road. I have a question about how they decide who can be appointed, mostly because, as she stated, 3 family members plus the selectman's wife was appointed to the board, which I feel like is a conflict of interest, because then you have 3 people that are more than likely going to be voting all together, and that takes up almost half of an entire board. Is there any rules in place to provide to stop for this happening, or is that something that we could put in place rather than asking everybody to have to vote for these positions?
You're getting someone to speak.
I've been on the board of selectmen now, select board, I still have trouble. Select board now for 4 years. Every year, as we reconstitute the board, And just about at every meeting, I even said it tonight, we ask, beg, plead, anytime I'm out, ask someone in town, come out for a board, come out for one of these commissions that the selectmen have a wide number of positions available, and there's just a dearth of people that come out. Again, I fear that you're not going to get a full slate of candidates to run for these positions. And thinking further out, if you look, and to answer your question directly, I don't recall exactly on this particular one, but we ask consistently for people to come out and run for these boards. We don't see it.
That doesn't really answer my question. I'm asking, is there a way to prevent multiple people from the same family?
We need more applications of more people to come out for these boards and to apply to be appointed. That's my answer to your question.
Mr. Pratt, you had your hand up?
Hold on. Somebody has a point of order, so you gotta handle that first. Yes, a point of order. So that's a priority motion. I don't know what it is, but we have to deal with that first.
Hello, Harold Peake, 21 at Autumn Road. It would be not germane to ask if there's another option, because when we're on the town meeting, we have to address the motion on the floor, and folks would have to put together another option that would have to go through the due process to getting onto the floor of the town meeting. So a discussion about, is there another alternative, couldn't be done, to my understanding, in terms of the rules of the town meeting. Thank you.
That is correct. Thank you, sir. Mr. Pratt.
I don't think the question was there something else in place? I think she was wondering if there are safeguards to prevent against it, and that's what we're trying to do here tonight. What we're trying to do is make sure that the members of the board are not systematically replaced like they were the last time. It wasn't due to lack of turnout or lack of interest in being on the board. Several members of the board were eliminated and replaced by these people. To vote one way or one project.
Thank you. Ma'am, in the center.
Karen Mayo, 9 Pine Knoll. I am a member of the CPC. I am not a member of anybody's family.
Can you put the mic closer
on
to
the
you?
CPC, and I am not the wife of a selectman. So I don't know where the information is coming from that 3 members of the CPC are family members. Because I'm not a family member. I know one other that's not a family member. I know one who is a family member who was appointed by the respective board that she sits on. That's how she got onto the CPC. So to say that it was done behind everybody's back, I don't think is true. To my knowledge, it is not true. I would also like to address that this is all about the North Pond issue, and you were thinking that as a member of the CPC, wait a minute, that as a member of the CPC, that we did not have our own vote, we did not make up our own mind, we did not do our own due diligence. I was personally not for the project, but the first $1 million I voted for because I felt that it was up to the community to decide what to do with their funds. But I also thought that the project was too expensive. So when you failed in your fundraising, I didn't think that it was appropriate to be spending that much money on this project. And I did my due diligence. I spoke to finance members, I spoke to select members, I spoke to developers, I have an experience with commercial credit analysis. I went to senior VPs in the banking community. I do work for a bank. I asked a lot of questions. I did my due diligence. I was not irresponsible in my vote. There was 100 people there who were against it, and I was appointed by the selectmen to represent the people of this community. I happen to represent 100 people who were against it. So for you guys to imply that I was irresponsible is totally outrageous.
Thank you. Anybody on stage?
Great Brook Drive. Just to clarify, every appointee by the select board is from a different family. So I don't know where there's 3 members from the same family. That's totally inaccurate as far as my knowledge is. My sister-in-law sits on the board as well as I, and she is appointed by the housing.
Thank you. Anybody else for comments? Yes, ma'am.
I am an elected official for the housing, and I
Hold on one second. Wait for the, thank you.
Hi, Joanne Horacek, 4 Country Club Drive. I am an elected official for the Southwick Housing Authority, and I was appointed by my board to be on the CPC committee. I've always wanted to be on it. I want to know what's going on and where we're spending the money. Every time we had a meeting, it was never reported back to us. So this is the reason I wanted on this board. It wasn't for your North Pond or anything else, because I had my own personal reasons, same as Karen, was that it was too much money for the town. We gave out $1 million, and then it was 500, and then it was supposed to be, the state was supposed to come back, and the state never came back. So I just thought, and then if we had spent more, we had only less than $50,000 left in the account, and that we would have to put a bond for the next 15 years, and we would have no money for any projects. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for any comments? Moving forward, no more discussion about the North Pond. This is sticking to the article. This is sticking strictly to the article as written, please, by the petitioners. Okay? Moving forward, questions? Yes, right there in the center.
My name is Ann Griskus, 6 2nd Street. I'm here to support this article because the CPC let us down as a community. We showed them what we wanted. We told them what we wanted in advance, and they did not listen. The point here is to give the people a voice on that committee, not to be appointed, but to be elected by friends or family or whatever the case may be. You don't like it, you don't agree, get somebody to run, and then you got to say. It's simple. That's the point of this article. It's not to say North Pond Project. That pointed out a problem on that committee. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Wallace?
John Wally, 38 Foster Road. I was on the CPC when it was first passed in 2002. I was the chairman right up until the time that I was not reappointed by the select board, so they could appoint someone who would vote the way they wanted to instead of me. So what people are saying here is, I want to be on the ballot, and I want to get elected to the CPC, not thrown off.
Thank you. Anybody else for any questions? Over on the left.
Charles Dunlap, 66 Vining Hill Road. I would like to move the question to vote.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. Remove the question. We're going to move to a vote. All right. The vote requires majority vote. We'll try this as a voice one more time. So all those in favor of Article 7, say aye. Aye. All those opposed Article 7, say no. No. I'm going to do a hand count. Tellers, go to work.
Okay, what do you want to do?
To all those that are in favor of Article 7, please raise your hand. Please keep your hands up until you are sure you have been counted. Jessica? Mike? 42. All those oppose Article 7, put your hands up and keep them there until you know you've been counted. Jessica? Paul? Michael? By 73 to 61, the Article 7 passes. I'd like to say thank you. You're very generous to my first time. I'm now going to pass the gavel back over to Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Michelle. Nice job. As things often run in this town, you get trial by fire as moderator. The first meeting I did was the first time we had a sewer authorization. But I appreciate her stepping in, appreciate the good discussion, and we'll move on. So we're at Article 8, borrowing authorization, to see if the town will appropriate $2 million or any other amount to pay costs of roadway reconstruction, including costs of paving, resurfacing, and for the payment of all of the costs incidental and related thereto, to determine whether this amount shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing, or otherwise, or to take any other action relative thereto. I will let the Finance Chair read the motion. This is requested by the Select Board, and when we do get to a vote, it will require a 2/3 vote. So at this time, I'd ask for the Finance Committee recommendation.
Article 8, the Finance Committee recommends that the town vote that the sum of $2 million is appropriated to pay costs of roadway reconstruction, including the cost of paving, resurfacing, and the payment of all other costs. Okay. All other costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to the MGL Chapter 44, Section 7(1), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town thereunder. The premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, or pursuant to any other vote of the town heretofore adopted, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
And at this time, comment from the Select Board. Explanation.
I think everybody's well aware that we're falling behind on our roads, just like every other community. This is an attempt, an agreement we've worked out with the Finance Committee to do this bonding, to help us add that additional money along with our Chapter 90 money and along with some other money we're going to be asking later on from the stabilization fund to try to put a dent in some of the roads and culverts and other issues facing the town of South Lake.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 8. Question or comment? Nancy. Wait for the microphone.
Nancy Dunn, 14 Jeffrey Circle. I'm just curious, as I've lived on a street that has not been looked at in the 40 years I've been here, how and who is going to make a decision on which roads get worked on first? I mean, obviously the main roads, but, you know, some of us south of the center of town really could use some work on our roads.
No easy answer, Nancy. A few years ago, the voters approved a software, it's called Beta, and what that did is analyzed all our roads, and our DPW director, Randy, can go into more details if you'd like more details on that. And it helps us prioritize roads. A lot of it is done by the condition of the roads, when it was last taken care of, traffic count, safety, things of those issues. We'll be quite honest, this $2 million bonding plus money from the stabilization fund plus Chapter 90 money isn't going to do all the roads in the town of South Lake. We're going to be sitting down as road commissioners with Randy and with Dick Brunels, our town engineer, and we're going to try to prioritize what we think are the roads that need the most attention as quickly as possible. And we're going to try to be fair, and I know we've talked about your road 40 years, that's a long time. We're going to try to look at some of those smaller neighborhoods too, not just the larger ones.
Other questions or comments up here in the center, please?
Ann Griskus, 2nd Street. My question to you is, what percentage will this money that you're proposing here on all articles make a difference in how much we really need for road construction in this town? Because no matter where you go, there's always a problem. For example, Miller Road with the bike path, the road is deteriorating daily. So I don't know if I approve this money, how much money do we need for a plan? What is the plan? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? What? You're telling me to give me a Band-Aid. Okay, I'll give you a Band-Aid, but what's the process to get stitches?
This isn't going to end well. So you may as well hear it from me. So Randy Brown and I have sat down for a few years. It's been hell trying to get money for roads, literally. Randy would like $4 million a year about the next 4 or 5 or 6 years. He would like about $16 million to start with. And that's not, you know, every year everything goes up, that's not even in the plan. So unless I could give him $16 million this year, we could get a lot done. I can't. We got together hopefully $2 million in that bond. And you were right, you're probably not even going to see where that money goes. It's sad. A culvert today is 600 grand, like it's nothing, and they're falling apart left and right. Road paving in this town, apparently there were farm roads back before we were born, and they just paved over them, they did what they did, and now we get a youngster from south of here named Randy Brown that says, hey old man, you did everything wrong. You got to do a total reclaim of the road. Klein Road is a perfect example. You can't just pave Klein Road. I grew up off of Klein Road. You're talking, I think it was around $450,000 to do Klein Road. So $2 million is 4 or 5 roads doing a full depth. We can go further with just some milling and that kind of stuff, but you're right, it doesn't get you far. And the game plan is $16 million. I'm trying to get them $2 million now, and I'll be shocked if I'm not sitting here next year asking for $2 to $3 or $4 million bonding issue again, and that's going to continue for a while.
So
I hope I answered your question.
Please use the microphone for the follow-up, ma'am.
I'm sorry, are you saying 16 million is the number?
Yes, that's what you wanted, a realistic number.
Yeah.
It's $16 million.
16 million?
Yep.
Today's dollars?
Today's dollars.
Other questions and comments on Article 8? Seeing none? Okay. Ruth, I'm sorry, I missed you down there. You're being inconspicuous on me.
Well, I can't grow any taller. Actually, I'm in support of this because I don't want our roads to look like the roads in Westfield.
Gentleman in the back there, about 2/3 of the way back.
Davin Thomas, 45 Miller Road. The question I have for you is, using the beta program, who put the information in for the program? And has the roads actually been physically driven by the people that are making the decision of which roads are actually being done? I work for Highway Department, and our beta program is not always correct.
Good luck, Randy.
So can we get a microphone to Randy, please? Randy Brown is our DPW director.
Randy Brown, 95 Fred Jackson Road, DPW director. Thank you, great question, Davin. So about 4 years ago, we did go forward with this pavement management program through Beta Group. That was a company name that prepared for us. And yes, they hired they had 2 people who drove every road in town. And what they did is they did a full condition analysis of each road. They looked at the pavement condition, they looked at the sidewalks, if there was sidewalk, they looked at the curbing, and noted the condition and if there's any deterioration in that road. So that analysis was done as of that date that road was driven. What I do is I update that program every year as best I can, and then based on the numbers and statistics that go into that program, it prioritizes which road should be done at which time. And the information that determines the prioritization is based on the road condition, it's based on the average daily traffic, and those 2 factors.
Follow-up question or comment relative to the first one, please, sir. And then I'm going to go to Russ Fox.
Just so you know, I'm with you. Me too.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Russ Fox. He's got kind of late-breaking news here that is perfect. They're having a lot of fun with that microphone.
All right. We did get a little good news. I just got a text message from Senator Humison. We've been working with the Senator and Representative Voltiga for additional road monies, and the Senate just approved some additional monies for the town of Southwick. Just the Senate, it hasn't passed anything yet, but I just thought it'd be a little positive news.
Okay, further discussion on Article 8, a little bit of good news there, but hopefully Senator Humison will bring home the bacon. Mr. Wally over here behind you.
I'd like to move them all.
Okay, please identify yourself, sir.
John Wally, 38 Foster Road. I'd like to move the question.
Okay, so at this point, motion to move the question requires a 2/3 majority vote cut off debate. All in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. At this time, we will vote on Article 8. Requires a 2/3 majority vote. We'll try it by voice first. All in favor of Article 8, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. That's carried unanimously. On to Article 9, which is also a borrowing authorization to see if the town will appropriate $300,000 or any other amount to pay costs of design work necessary to undertake renovations at the Southwick Fire Station, including but not limited to the replacement of masonry and roofing elements of the building, and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, to determine whether this amount shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing, or otherwise, or to take any other action relative thereto. And I assume that was requested by the select board, and it was, will require a 2/3 vote. So, Finance Committee recommendation on Article 9.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote that the sum of $300,000 is appropriated to pay costs of design work necessary to undertake renovations at the Southwick Fire Station, including but not limited to the replacement of masonry and roofing elements of the building, and the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto. And that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7(1), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote or pursuant to any other vote of the town heretofore adopted, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 34, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount.
Okay, any explanation from the select board? Microphone fired up now? I'm glad we got lawyers that are good with AD stuff. That's a good sign.
Mr. Moderator, last year, ladies and gentlemen, a town meeting approved a municipal buildings condition study. So that study was undertaken by Ty and Bond over the last year with a team of department heads, and we had them begin the process of evaluating what needed to be done in the different buildings for the next 20 years, because we wanted to make sure that we would position ourselves for the future and have a plan. So in terms of finalizing that document within the last couple of months, the first priority that they reported back was the need for some work to be done, masonry work and roof replacement at the Southwick Fire Station. It's hard to believe, but these buildings are now over 20 years old, and we're starting to have some issues that need to be addressed, and this has been identified as the first item that has to be addressed, and that's why it's coming before you for the design and permitting part of these improvements and repairs that need to be made so that we can maintain our facilities and bring them into the future and protect the envelope of the building.
Okay, questions and or comments on Article 9? Gentleman back here on my right, please.
Hi, Michael Smith, Hillside Road. I know Teague & Bond did the study. Are they also part of the design team?
The condition study was done by Ty and Bond, so what will happen is if town meeting approves it this evening and the funds get in place, then what we'll do is we will issue a request for proposals, and we will go through the process of hiring another design, or anybody can apply for it, and could include Ty and Bond, but we will be doing a process to procure another engineering company to do the permitting and design.
Any other questions or comments on Article 9? Seeing none. Pat.
Because I'm shy.
No, it's just fine.
Pat McMahon, 30 Lauren Lane. My only question is, this is just for the design phase. Is there any kind of a estimate on what the total cost is going to be, and would you be coming back next year looking for a bond for that, which I assume would be way more than $300,000?
Yeah, I mean, part of the process of doing the design and permitting, which is estimated at $285,000, and we have a contingency in here, that's why we get to the 300 numbers. It could be near $1 million, but we'll have a better idea once they go through this design and permit process. They have to issue a much more definitive estimate to do the work. And we'll have a better idea at that point in time, and we'll be bringing it before you for approval of any subsequent step.
Okay, anything else on Article 9? Okay, Ruth, I almost missed you again.
Excuse me, Ruth Preston, Point Grove Road. I've repaired a roof temporarily myself. Can we do some temporary repairs to stop the leaking at least?
That was not the recommendation of the company. They're tasked with the issue of trying to do it right, and this is their recommendation.
Okay, anything else on Article 9? Seeing none, I am going to call the vote. All in favor of Article 9, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, say no. That's carried unanimously. On to Article 10, capital expenditures, use of stabilization funds. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the total sum of $157,000 from the stabilization fund in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, for the purpose of purchasing road construction and maintenance equipment or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the DPW and the Select Board. Again, I'll ask for a Finance Committee recommendation.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate and transfer the total sum of $157,000 from the stabilization fund in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, for the purpose of purchasing road construction and maintenance equipment, as read by the moderator.
Okay, and any commentary from the Select Board?
Again, this is additional funds that we're asking for to work on town roads.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 10. Article 10 is basically a funding mechanism. Deb, and even though I know who you are, please identify yourself by name and street. Thanks.
Deb Herrick, 3 Shore Road. Do we know what equipment we will be purchasing?
Mr. Brown, popular young man tonight.
Randy Brown, 95 Jackson Road. Yes, of course, we do have an idea. So these pieces of equipment are going to help us maintain our roads, especially address our pothole situation much quicker and much more efficiently in the process. The big ticket item is it's called an asphalt recycler. What we do is we take millings from an older project, and we can actually reuse those millings, heat them up in this recycler, add some emulsifier, and we actually use that in patch potholes. So right now we use, before the asphalt plants open up, which is typically in late March, early April, we have to rely on cold patch. Cold patch is the only thing available, so it's what we use, but it's not effective. So this asphalt recycler will allow us to basically produce our own hot mix all year long. Along with that recycler, we're looking to get a skid steer loader with a planer attachment, and that planer attachment will be very effective, again, for pothole repairs. And instead of just kind of filling one hole and one hole here and one hole there, in certain situations we can actually plane out a couple inches of asphalt where it's very deteriorated, and we can kind of give a more permanent, better looking repair, smoother repair at that location. And then the third item is a vibratory roller. So once we lay that asphalt, we need a good solid roller to roll it.
That's great, thank you.
Anything else under Article 10? Seeing none, call the vote. Requires 2/3 again. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Article 11 is the annual budget. So I hope you've all got one of these. If you don't, encourage it. Can't leave, but go out to the lobby and get one or share one with a neighbor, because it's not going to make a lot of sense if you don't have a copy of this. It's 24 pages. I'm going to try to break it up by budget category, so bear with me on that, and we'll go through one section at a time, contain our discussion to that section, and then we'll come back at the end, and there'll be an omnibus budget motion, which will both approve the expenditures, but also the appropriations, which balance against those expenditures. So we're going to start on page 1, which is actually several pages, and there's some graphs and so forth that are helpful, but it'll look like that. So lots of numbers. And you've got your various municipal categories listed down the left-hand side. So it's going to start with moderator and selectmen and so forth, and go right through the entire budget, what the line items are, and so forth. But the column that you want to pay attention to is the last column on the right, and that's the request for you to approve for the fiscal 2019-2020 budget. So from July 1st of this year to June 30th of 2020. That's what we're approving this evening. So everybody kind of got their bearings here. We're going to go pretty quickly through this. So page 1 is general town government. We've got the moderator, select board, chief administrative officer, operations. We've got the reserve fund on page 2. Continuing on, we have finance committee salary, finance committee operations, reserve fund for wage negotiations, then the accounting department, municipal audit, the assessors. Over on to page 3. We have more assessors than the town clerk office, legal advertisements, legal operations. Moving over to page 4, we have labor negotiator operations, tax title, then the election registration categories, conservation salaries and operations, and capital. Then same for planning board. Over to page 5. Planning board, continued planning board, then board of appeals, economic development, computer salary and operations, and then over to page 6, we have town hall salaries and operations, and we finish up in the middle of page 7 with town hall capital and the town hall, or the annual town report. And the total of all of those, again, in that right-hand column, the total being requested is $2,274,492. Looks like to me. Again, you've got the other 4 columns which show you what the amount budgeted for the current year and the prior 3 fiscal years. And my understanding, that is the budgeted amount, not necessarily the expenditure amount. So with that, total general government of $2,274,000 and some change. What is the Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,274,492 for total general government.
Okay. Select board wish to make any comments relative to that or take questions? Okay. So anything pages 1 through, I'm going to call it, 7.5. Any questions or comments on any of those categories? They're open for discussion. Anything on general government? No, there's a lot there, a lot of pages, a lot of numbers. Seeing none, I'm going to call a vote. We're going to vote individually on these sections, and then we'll come back and take a consolidated vote at the end. But all in favor of $2,274,000 and change for general government, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. The next section is public safety starts in the middle of page 7. So police department, and then over on to 8. Police operations, police capital, on to 9. Dispatcher salaries and operation, constables. Then on 9, fire salaries and operations and capital. Bottom of page 10, public safety buildings operation, capital. I'm over on to 11 now. Then building inspector categories, emergency management salaries and operations. Over onto page 12, emergency management, the animal control, salaries, operations, and capital. Then lake management salary, operations, and capital, and then lake restoration operations, for a total public safety line item $3,245,877. I like the other, your replacement better. Anyway, go ahead. We're looking for a recommendation on total public safety of $3,245,000 and change.
Okay. The Finance Committee recommends $3,248,977 for public safety.
Okay, and I assume we take questions before July.
Do I read that one? 245. Okay. Finance Committee recommends...
To the microphone, please.
Sorry. Finance Committee recommends $3,245,877 for public safety.
And Select Board will take questions. Any questions on the public safety items that go on these last several pages, I guess from 7 through middle of 13? Any questions or comments there? Ruth? Let's get her a microphone. Ruth, you do not have to stand up. I'm going to make an exception for you as long as you use the microphone for us.
My only question is that enough money for the lake management control? I know they've got a lot of problems keeping it clean.
The question was that enough for the lake management committee to do what they needed to? Did I get that about right, Ruth? Yes. Okay. Perhaps Dick Reynolds can give us a view on that?
Dick Reynolds, 148 Berkshire Avenue, Chair of Lake Management Committee. The money that we're seeking for treating the lakes with alum, we are trying to get from the state because it is a state waterway. Conwan is a great pond, hence owned by the Commonwealth, not by the town. And we feel strongly that the state should be paying for that major cost, which we're looking for in the range of $800,000. And we're still working on that. There is a supplementary bill that our legislators have filed to get us additional funding. And we'll see how that fares.
Other questions on the public safety budget items we just covered? Seeing none, again, the line item total is $3,245,877 for public safety. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. On to the DPW items, so gas and oil, then the highway division, going down page 13, over to page 14. We have winter road salaries, operations. We have the street lighting line item, then the road machinery operations, capital, and DPW engineering division, salaries and operations, and capital. DPW highway chapter 90 division, solid waste salaries and operations, and capital And then down at the bottom of page 15 now, a line item total of $1,794,114. And what is the Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends $1,794,114 for DPW.
Okay, any questions on the DPW line items? Question or comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Again, we've said the number a couple of times, bottom right of page 15. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. So now we're on to page 16, and that is environmental. And first we have Sewer Implementation Committee operations. And that's all there is. That's other environmental. That's a line item total of $3,247. What's the Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends $3,247 for environmental.
Any other or any questions on other environmental? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of $3,247, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Now on to the next category. So we have cemetery salaries, operations, capital, then Board of Health salaries, operations, Council on Aging salaries, and now over to page 17, Council on Aging operations, capital, and then veteran services, for a total human services of $366,840. $356,840, I apologize. Some of these numbers are a little at the lower range of my vision, but anyway, $356,840. Go ahead, Bob.
The Finance Committee recommends $356,840 for total human services.
Any discussion on human services? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Then cultural, first we have library salaries, operations, and capital, and on page 17, moving ahead to page 18, park and rec salaries, operations, and capital. Then towards the bottom of page 18, cultural council operations, then historical operations, and then finishing up on page 19, Channel 15 salaries, Channel 15 operations and capital. Total culture and recreation, $586,950. What is the Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends $586,950 for total cultural and recreation.
Okay, discussion on those line items. Question or comment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the total given to you for culture and recreation, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Next category is principal and interest on debt that the town has incurred. So the first category on page 19 for principal repayment of the debt. And then on page 20 is the interest on the debt. And then in the middle of page 20, employee benefits, and then casualty insurance. So a total down there at the bottom of 20 for total debt, interest, and insurance, $2,112,867. And what is the Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends $2,112,857 for total debt, interest, and insurance.
Discussion on that category. Then all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. That's carried unanimously. Do you want to do the item results now, or can we go through the So we're going to keep moving through the budget. We'll do the consolidating at the end. You can see there at the bottom of 20, the total being appropriated for all the general government categories that we've just been through. So keep that in mind as we go forward. So now I'm going to go to the municipal enterprises that have separate budgets and typically have some revenues of their own. We can talk some more about that later if you wish. But the water department, and so you've got elected salaries, operations on page 21, then page 22, capital, debt, interest, a salary reserve, and employee benefits, for a grand total of the water division of $1,636,038. That is the Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends $1,636,038 for the total water division.
Okay, open for discussion on Water Division, pages 21 and 22. Any questions or comments? Okay, then I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Next is sewer on page 23. So again, salaries, operations, capital, salary reserve, principal, and interest, for a grand total of $1,471,224. What is the Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends $1,471,224 for the sewer division.
Open for discussion. Any questions or comments on the sewer categories? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. And now wrapping down to page 24, the EMS Emergency Management Services budget. So you have salaries, operations, capital, and a salary reserve account there. Grand total $816,027. And what is the Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends $816,027 for the EMS budget.
Okay, questions there? Yes, sir. Pete.
Sir, page 821 at home. Sorry.
Thank you. My question is, I'm looking at the fiscal 19 budget, which was $660,793. Can anybody tell me what the ambulance receipts were for that same fiscal year, which would offset that?
The town accountant is checking her books, Pete. Thank you. He says, give her a minute. For current fiscal year or prior? For prior, so fiscal 18.
So the revenue brought in were $324,914.
It was $324,914.
Thank you. Other questions on EMS or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. So So you've been through the entire budget. Again, as I indicated at the beginning, requires one more motion to kind of pull it all together and specify the total being proposed expenditures and balance against the proposed funding, the revenues that will go against that. So I recognize the Finance Committee Chair for that recommendation.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,281,291 and appropriate the transfer from free cash $1,180,000 and appropriate and transfer from the cable TV the sum of $32,500 and appropriate and transfer from the sale of lots $16,100 and appropriate and transfer from overlay surplus the sum of $50,000 and appropriate and transfer from the sewer capital account the sum of $50,000 and appropriate and transfer from sewer retained earnings the sum of $215,637 and appropriate and transfer from the water retained earnings the sum of $472,138 for the grand total of $14,297,666, which represents the general fund budget in the amount of $10,374,377 and the water fund budget of $1,636,038 and the sewer budget of $1,471,224 and the emergency medical services budget for $816,027 as read by the moderator.
So a lot of numbers and moving pieces there, and I'm going to try to categorize it. I'm going to ask our town accountants and our Finance Committee Chair to verify or correct what I'm going to explain to you. But that takes all the expenditures that you just approved for fiscal 19-20, so everything that you've already approved, and puts up the same amount of revenues against that for a balanced budget. So what you're doing is both funding the budgeted expenditures and approving those expenditures. Is that a fair description of what we're doing? That's what you're being asked to do. Is there any questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. Carried unanimously. We're now on to Article 12, the Departmental Revolving Fund Annual Spending Limit Authorization. To see if the town will vote to fix the maximum amount that may be spent during fiscal year 2020, beginning on July 1st, 2019, for the revolving funds established in Chapter 25 of the Code of the Town of Southwick for certain departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E, 1/2, or take any other action relative thereto requested by the Select Board, and I'll ask for a Finance Committee recommendation.
Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to authorize Article 12 in the amount of $305,000 for the purposes of inspectors revolving, hazmat revolving, boat ramp revolving, police chief lake revolving, local lake permitting revolving, custodial service fund revolving, COA revolving fund, and COA classes revolving fund, sidewalk revolving, and COA house numbering program revolving fund.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 12, which is the annual reauthorization of the revolving funds. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. Carried unanimously. Article 13, Community Preservation Annual Budget. To act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Budget and to set up a budgeted reserve for later appropriation of monies from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues or available funds for the undertaking of community preservation projects and all other necessary and proper expenses for the year, pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44B, from the estimated FY 2020 Community Preservation Fund appropriation to be set aside as follows, and that is requested by the Community Preservation Committee. What's the Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to authorize community preservation reserves in the amount of $484,337 as read by the moderator.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 13. Question or comment? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of Article 13 as presented to you, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. We're now at the top of page 5. Article 14, Community Preservation Committee, Administrative and Operating Expenses. To act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Budget and appropriate 5%, which is $16,951.75 of the monies from the Community Preservation General Unreserved Fund for the administrative and operating expenses of the Community Preservation Committee or take any other action relative thereto. And that's requested by the Community Preservation Committee. And what's the recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $16,951.75 from the Community Preservation General Reserve Fund for the purpose of administration and operating expenses of the Community Preservation Committee as read by the moderator.
Any questions on Article 14? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Article 15, Community Preservation Committee, Powder Mill Playground Restoration. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $140,000 from FY 2020 Community Preservation Open Space Fund for restoration of the current Powder Mill Playground, and that is requested by the Community Preservation Committee. Okay, there's going to be an amendment. Why don't we recommend the article to bring it onto the floor? Do you want to do that, or do you want me to take a motion from the floor? We have to bring it onto the floor before we can accept an amendment. Okay, Finance Committee recommends. Okay. So now we have an amendment. Is that who's presenting that?
Mr. Pratt.
Okay, Mr. Pratt, would you present the amendment, please? So again, we're working on Article 15, and please present your amendment.
The amendment is to transfer the sum of $140,000 from Community Preservation General Unreserved Fund instead of from Open Space Fund.
That's an appropriate amendment. It's clearly within the original intent of the article, so it's proper for consideration by the town meeting. So at this point, my understanding is, and correct me, Chris, if I'm wrong, you're just proposing a change in which account those funds come out of within the overall CPC fund. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have to make sure that we have enough funds in each account to be able to manage our budget, so that's exactly why it's done.
Okay. So, is there a second on the motion to amend? Second. Okay, so we have a motion made and second, and we're going to consider the motion first. You can vote the motion or the amendment up or down, and we'll come back depending on the outcome of that vote. Any discussion on the amendment, simply changing the source of funding from within the CPC funds? Then all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, there's one no, but carried by a majority. So with that, we're going to discuss Article 15 as amended. And I'll take discussion from Karen, and I forgot your last name, but we'll get your microphone in just a moment. This young lady's getting a lot of exercise tonight.
Karen DeMayo, 9 Pine Knoll. I want to start off by saying that I am in favor of the project. I do recognize that there's a lot of flooding and the changes in the grades that are in the school, that the kids should have appropriate playscapes. But I would like to bring to everybody's attention that if we approve this $140,000 and we approve the $228,500 in the capital budget that's going to be up for approval, we will be overfunding this project by $36,500. Why are we overfunding the project? And that's with contingencies within what was presented to the CPC. There's already $103,100 for contingencies. So with the contingencies and $36,500, that's close to the $140,000 that we're looking to approve for the CPC. I guess why are we overfunding the project?
So who would you like to answer the question?
I guess Ms. Willard would have to answer that.
Okay. So, Superintendent Willard, would you like to try and answer there?
The funding, I'm not sure where the numbers are coming from, Karen. If you go to the powder bill, site costs, 678,000, and funding sources are 678.
Okay. We're going to get you a microphone in just a second, so just hold off, Jen, please.
Okay.
Thanks, Jackie. Costs for the powder mill site improvement costs were $678,000. Funding sources are $678,000.
Okay.
Can you just, to help clarify.
I'll clarify. Because I'm working off of what Mr. Hool presented to the CPC, whereas there's $335,000 that were funded, $11,000 from fundraising. So if you put the $228,500 and the $140,000 from the CPC, that's up for a vote tonight, that's $714,500.
So we have $183,600 from previous capital, $115,000 from residual funds from the MSBA project, $140,000 anticipated Southwick CPC, $11,000 from the PAWS, which is the PTO fundraising, and $228,500 included in this year's capital request.
Okay, because what was presented to the CPC was $155,000 came from the sewer project that you were putting towards this. $100,000 was previously approved in 2017. There was $80,000 from paving that was approved for 2017. That came up to the $335,000 that was in your presentation. Then you add the $228,500 and the $11,000, that's $574,500. You add $140,000, that's $714,500. Minus $678,000, that's $36,500 overfunded. So you must have moved some money around after you did the presentation to the CPC.
Well, that was in January, and what we do as the project evolves and we get more information from Ty and Bond, we give you the more accurate information the closer we get. So the 678.1 or the 678 is the cost of the project with a contingency of 102.5.
Okay, Ty and Bond's numbers didn't change. It was the numbers that you presented that changed. And on top of this, when the CPC approved the $140,000, since this is a regional project, we also asked that you go to the other towns and to their CPC to try to request funds, and to my knowledge, that never happened.
Karen, we did ask for legal advice on that because we weren't sure if other town CPCs could go towards a project outside of their communities. We found out too late in the project that it could. That same question came up in Granville. Not something that we didn't try to explore. We had to make sure we had the correct legal advice before we went further.
Okay, then I would like to ask that this be voted down, and then when the project has its cost overruns and you eat into your $103,000, then you come back to the CPC. We will approve funds to go towards this project, but I can't see overfunding this project.
If people could just look at the Powder Mill site improvement costs on the slideshow, would have the costs.
I'm gonna, Karen's yielding the floor. If you would like to speak to the project, I will recognize you now, but I wanted to just provide some separation. So if you'd like to briefly speak to the project, go ahead, Superintendent.
Sure, and I can have Steve Presnell as well speak to it. It's been an extensive project. We've worked with Ty and Bond. We've broken down the cost to be as transparent as possible in the slideshow presentation that we handed out tonight. What the parking lot would cost, the water mitigation, the playground, the grounds improvement, the design fee, the miscellaneous costs, and the contingency fee. Comes to a total of $678,000. And the funding sources, again, as transparent as possible, $183,600 is from unspent capital. $100,000 came from FY18 playground that was approved, and from fiscal year 19 unspent paving. We did get $115,000 of residual funds from the MSBA project. We weren't exactly sure what that exact number was when we came to the CPC. The finalized numbers weren't there. We made our best guess. We do anticipate approval for the playground for our students at Powder Mill for $140,000 tonight. The PTO has fundraised $11,000, and we are asking for $228,500 in this year's capital budget. Capital budget was approved in both Talent and Granville in support of this project for our students. We really need to fix the water situation outside and have an ADA accessible playground for all of our students to be able to play on outside at recess.
Okay, other discussion on Article 15? Question or comment? Okay, Mr. Waller.
John Wally, 38 Foster Road. I would also suggest we vote this down until we get participation from the other two towns' community preservation funds.
Other discussion on Article 15? Lady right here, yeah. Please.
Kelly Parker, 25 Castle Street. I don't understand why this isn't coming out of the school budget and how this meets Community Preservation Committee requirements. I don't understand why this is coming out of CPC. If someone could explain how it meets the criteria for that, I'd appreciate that.
Tackle that one? Chair of the committee. Let's get the microphone to town council.
The law allows for CPC funds to be used for playgrounds and recreation.
Other discussion? Gentleman in the center.
Mike Doherty, 16 Lexington Circle. I'm the chair of the planning board. Just so everybody knows, this has come before the planning board already. They've been granted a special permit. The special permit contains language that requires during non-school hours that this be accessible to the entire community.
Other discussion on Article 15? Ruth? And you don't have to stand up every time, unless you wish to.
I just had a lot of stuff on my lap the last time. I just want to remind everybody that the CPC funds comes from people who own homes in Southwick, and after their first $1,000, they pay 3% on the remainder of the value of their home. I don't know if I said that clearly enough. But this year, we have 100 homes being built in Southwick. That means you're going to get a lot more money for the CPC. Plus, the state has increased the amount they're going to be matching for your fund. So once again, the CPC is going to have plenty of money in this next fiscal year.
Okay, other discussion on Article 15?
I hear what Karen said and what John said. I'm a little concerned if we delay this project. As we know, Powder Middle School is now a different age group. And they don't have access to a good facility. And I think it's very important. I think we also need to remember that Granville and Tolland share would be very small. And I appreciate everything that's been said, but I hope that we would pass this, get this project through, because Southwick, our region, I think we pay 86, 87% already, Jen?
83.1.
Okay. So,
What is the number? I'm not sure.
83.1.
83.1 is the Southwick percentage.
But when we started this project, you know, we realized that this wasn't just going to be for the children, but also it's going to be built near the track that was donated. This is going to be, and we talked about it in our open space planning committee that's going on. This is going to be a facility for the whole community. So this is going to be something of great benefit. I understand what people are saying, but if we delay this, it would necessitate another special town meeting, which would probably end up costing us additional money that we're not going to make up from Granville and Tolland. So please consider that.
Okay, lady here in the center. Nope, we've got one coming the other way, and thank you, Jess.
First of all, I think a $700,000 playground is a lot of money for a playground. I'm a special ed physical therapist myself, and I think the ADA accommodations are going to be great. But I think we just need some accountability from the school department, and if it is going to be over $36,000, let's just wait until that money is allocated from someplace else. Maybe we don't need it, maybe we can use it for something else. And I think, you know, we're talking about being fiscally responsible. I think the school needs to be fiscally responsible also when they come and ask, because she's going to ask for another $250,000 in the capital improvement project. So I think we can do it in part, Russ. I don't think it all needs to be done one and done. I think we won't need a special town meeting. Why can't we just we can revisit it next year, and we can. John Mullen had a great idea, and so did Chris Pratt last year. The water problem. Now that the sewer's in, we could put the filtration holes in. The water would drain from that playground area, so it would be accessible through the rainy season, through the springtime. Chris Pratt had also mentioned last year during the presentation to extend the grade of that and push the water towards the new highway out there. And that was another great idea by Chris. And I think we have some other things on the table that could work, and we could maybe hold on to that $36,000.
Okay, I think everybody's been heard. I'm going to take one more in the back, and then we're going to do the vote. And I guess it's Mr. Presnov.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just some history on the Powder Mill Playground project. The project was originally included in the scope of the MSBA project. That project was initially voted down by the voters in Southwick. It was approved originally by Granville and Tolland. In order to make the project more palatable for the residents in Southwick, we were given a second opportunity by the Mass School Building Authority to bring it back to the voters. We did scope reduction, and some of the scope reduction that occurred was the removal of a playground project for the Powder Mill School as well as the Woodland School. There were other items, changes to HVAC and some lighting. But essentially, that was the end of the playground project for the immediate time. The project, as it's designed right now, is not simply replacing playground equipment. It is a comprehensive project that looks at the parking lot, adds drainage to that parking lot, which mitigates the water situation, the flooding that we have, provides for accessible playground equipment, more age appropriate. It adds some additional lighting to the project, to the site, includes repairs and renovations to the basketball courts. We also have the designer fee, the engineering fees involved, miscellaneous, and then a little over $100,000 in contingency funds. So it is a rather comprehensive project, but that's what's needed in order to make it work at that site.
Okay, Chelsea, I will call on you. I know you're a member of the regional school committee, so go ahead. Please stand.
Hi,
Please stand.
Chelsea Berry, 106 Coast Hill Road. I'm also on the school committee. One of the biggest things you can see is at Powder Mill is this pond, this beautiful pond that our children get to gaze at their recess. It is also the face of that school when tons of schools come and use our tracks and they get to see a swamped playground. It is not just a playground though. That water cannot just sit there. We all know water is the most powerful source on the earth. And excuse me if I'm babbling, I have a really bad cold. But people can have great ideas, but we had real engineers go in and design a plan that will fix the water drainage. Those kind of things aren't fixed cheaply. We just heard in appropriated funds for DPW. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars for water to be moved properly. Our kids, they need this. Our community is going to benefit from it. We're not asking to raise taxes. It's CPC funds. I really ask that you vote for this. I think it's a great investment and that you won't regret it. It's going to be beautiful.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote on Article 15. All right.
Given the discussion on both, and it's a valid point about having the other communities participate from their CPC, and this seems to be slightly over budgeted, rather than just cause a direct up or down vote on this particular item, I'm suggesting that some thought be given to a floor amendment to slightly reduce this total amount. That would allow this article to potentially proceed as amended and potentially get a positive vote at town meeting floor so that the project can proceed as it's intended based on the way it seems to be slightly over budgeted right now. If they can go back to Granville and Tallinn to their CPC, great, but reduce the amount in this, and I'm putting it out there as a suggestion. I'm not making that amendment. I'm putting it out there as a suggestion to those people that suggested that if we voted down and causing us to potentially either have to take this up next year or at a special.
Karen? Okay, you may make that motion. I'm going to need it in writing. And what I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to suggest this to all of you on the town meeting floor, just so that we keep moving, is that perhaps you and the regional school folks kind of put your heads together, come up with a balanced number here, so that we're not, we don't have an over appropriation. And we'll move on to Article 16 in the meanwhile. And then when you come back, if you can make the appropriate amendment. Or are you comfortable making it as is?
I'm comfortable to go down to $100,000. Take away the 36.5, it's overfunded. I just don't know if John Wally wants to put a number to Granville and Tallinn. So are you on board with the $100,000?
Okay.
Then I'd like to make an amendment for $100,000, not $140,000.
I'm still going to require you to give that to me in writing, but I'm
I don't know
going
what that
to
entails.
repeat it as I understand it. So you are making a motion to amend Article 15 to read the sum of $100,000 from fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Funds. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So is there a second to that amendment? Okay. I will rule that as a valid amendment. It's certainly within the scope of what was proposed in the warrant, so it's a valid amendment. Is there discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote on the amendment. So all we're doing right now is voting to change the number from 140 to 100,000. So all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Okay, so the ayes have it on the amendment. Now we're back to discussion on Article 15 as amended to say if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000. Is there any further discussion? This has been well discussed, folks. Any final words here? Seeing that, I'm going to call the vote. So again, you're voting on an amended article at a number of 100,000. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And that carries unanimously. So we move on to Article 16, Community Preservation Committee, APR, North Long Yard Road. See if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $115,000 from fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Open Space Fund and General Unreserved Fund towards the purchase of an agricultural preservation restriction of 58.65 acres of farmland on North Long Yard Road. The APR is valued at $905,000. The state of Massachusetts APR program is matching the $115,000. Project site, and it goes on to list the property description at the Registry of Deeds. I'm not going to read through all of that. Requested by the Community Preservation Committee. What is the Finance Committee recommendation on Article 16? Wait, I'm sorry. There is a proposed amendment on Article 16, and I'm going to ask that we consider it just as a correction, no need to amend, because it just proposes to replace the language the state of Massachusetts APR program is matching with the federal APR program is matching. It doesn't change the outcome of what you're being asked to do. Unless there's any objection, I'm going to accept it as a corrected language on Article 16. Is there any objection to doing that? Hearing none, we'll correct the wording on that. What is the recommendation on the corrected warrant article?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $115 in accordance with the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee as amended.
That's correct. $115,000.
I'll reread that.
For clarification. Open for discussion. Dennis?
Chapter 2. Yeah, Dennis Clark, 75 Fred Jackson Road. I am the Conservation Commission Coordinator for the Southern Conservation Commission for over 15 years now. Currently the Chair of the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Former Vice Chair for the Community Preservation Committee for over 10 years. Unpaid consultant for the Community Preservation Committee for quite a few years. I'm a great proponent of APRs. I brought all 12 of them since 2003 to the CPC. Personally been involved with every one of them. It's a great program because we only pay 10% and the state pays the other 90%. I'm very familiar with this article we have today because I brought it to last year's town meeting and it was voted on, and the town appropriated $44,500 for this APR for this property. Now, it's very confusing because it came back again this year. We don't know if I guess it was appraised again, a second appraisal was done. And it says here on the, it says the APR value is $905,000, which is not correct. It's not the APR value. And even if it was, at 10% of that is certainly not $115,000. Now, I'm in favor of APRs. This has already been approved. There's no reason to give them more money for it. I think this is being abused, this process at this point, and I just don't like to see it abused. We already voted on it. It was already agreed upon. The state is not going to give them any more money. They said if the town wants to give them more money, then yeah, go ahead and give it to them. But, you know, there was a second appraisal done. The first one was for $445,000. And the second one, I'm not exactly sure, because it says $905,000, but I'm not exactly sure, because this isn't correct. But it's, there should have been a third appraisal done. And when it's over double the money, I've never had an appraisal come in that's been that far off, and we haven't had at least a review appraisal done on this. We can let Barbara Hopkins wants to elaborate further on this. I'd be happy to hear it, but I think this is a grievous injustice to the APR system. We've had people come in, Nassau Benny, the Meadowview Farms. They got appraised for more than we could give them, and they did a charitable deduction, and they gave that money up. We had the Cowards come in on College Highway. Theirs was appraised for more money than we could give them because it wasn't approved by the state, and we refused to give it to them. I don't know how this could possibly be fair at this point to give this kind of money out at this time, especially when it's not right, not even correct.
Okay, other discussion on Article 16. Marcus Phelps.
Marcus Phelps, 28 Depot Street. I have a question for the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. Are you requesting an additional $115,000 added to the money that we appropriated under Article 14 last year of $44,500?
Yes, that's what the board voted on. That's what the CPC committee voted on. Is Barbara Hobson here?
She is.
Barbara, could you elaborate a little bit on how this process worked and clarify it for us?
I will recognize Barbara to answer, I think, a couple of questions here that have been raised. She is a representative of the state, the Massachusetts State Department of Agriculture, who administers the program. So welcome to the meeting, and please provide us some explanation.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to clarify some of the numbers here. Indeed, the number 905 in the warrant article is incorrect. The APR value is $675,000, not $905. And basically, this this project has been, I think, in the queue for 2.5 years now, and we initially, the Department of Agricultural Resources, through the APR program, initially had an appraisal done on the 58 plus acres that came in with an APR value of $445,000. At that point last year, we came to town meeting for 10%, which is the standard request that we have, local contribution from CPC funding. During the course of, we have to, our appraisals basically are only good for a 1-year period. So by state law and also by the federal requirements, and we do partner with the federal government, that we're required to do what's called a supplemental appraisal review. And the supplemental appraisal review that we did on this project showed that there was a $230,000 increase in value of the property. And that's based on a bunch of things, but some comparable sales in town. So seeing that there was a $230,000 increase, we, the department, we went to the federal government, basically through their agricultural lands easement program, and requested from the federal government an additional $115,000 in funding. They did, they agreed to go ahead with that, so we came back to the town of Southwick for a match of $115,000. So that's basically how we get to the numbers.
Okay, Marcus, follow up on that, please. I think you got to keep the microphone back there. Thank you, Jess.
Marcus Phelps, 28 Depot Street. So the response to my first question from the chairman of the CPC was that the monies would be added together from last year and then what's being requested this year. So that comes to $159,500. And that's way more than the 10% of the new appraised value of $675,000. 10% of that is $67,500. And since we've already, or $67,500. since we've already appropriated last year $44,500, we should amend this article. Someone from the Community Preservation Committee would be the appropriate one to amend the article to appropriate an additional $23,000, not the $115,000. Thank you.
So Marcus, let me just clarify, you're asking or suggesting or something that somebody else make a motion to amend. That wasn't a motion to amend on your part.
That's correct.
That's correct. I think if town council could chime in, it's not appropriate for just someone from the town meeting floor to amend the CPC motion.
You can amend it down. You can amend it.
So, Marcus, you may amend down, and I will rule that that's within scope. Do you wish to do that?
Yes, I wish to amend it from 115,000 down to 23,000.
Okay. And if you can give that to the town clerk in writing before we leave here tonight, I would appreciate that. But I will approve of the amendment as being within scope. And again, as I understand it, the amendment is to Article 16 would be in the motion to change in both the article and the motion, to change the number 115,000 to 23,000. Am I correct? Okay. So now we're open for discussion on the amendment to Article 16. Mr. Grant.
Point of order, just.
Oh, wait a minute. I didn't get a second on that. I'll recognize you. Is there a second? Okay, I got a second from PP.
Does the 905,000 have to be changed now to 675?
Okay. Good point. Mr. Article Petitioner here, you're willing to change that? The number 900 and, where is it?
Yes, I'll amend my amendment to...
No, we're going to get the amendment straight here. We're not going to amend it.
Okay. Yeah, the amendment would include reducing the APR value to $675,000 from $905,000.
So again, I will approve that as within scope. So discussion on the amendment. We're basically taking the proposal that you're going to vote on in a few minutes is to take those numbers down to be consistent, as I understand it, with prior practice on APR properties in the town of Southwick. Right? Yep. Okay, Mr. Mish.
I have a question. Is that going to be enough to cover what the federal government is matching? So maybe
You don't have to put anything in.
I was asking the lady up there, the gal.
Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, just
Last name's Hobson. Your question was, we were asking for the match from the town and additional money from the federal government. So the Commonwealth has already committed, or at this point is committed to $400,500 towards the project. So we're requesting an additional $115,000 from the federal government and an additional $115,000 from the town.
so we need that $115,000 to make this go?
Yes.
No.
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's
I think we're hearing a yes from Ms. Hobson. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You gotta
Anything else
clarify
to say?
that.
And then I'll recognize somebody else to give a contrary view, but we're not gonna chip in and have a general discussion here. So, do you have anything else to offer on that, Ms. Hobson?
Yep, I guess just a final thing to say is that this piece of property, if you're familiar with it, it is on North Long Yard. It's just an absolutely beautiful piece of property. We look at the soil types and the management of property, and basically we look at prime farmland soils, and this property is about 98% prime farmland soils. So from a Department of Agriculture point of view, you don't get much better. Thank you.
Okay, so somebody else, okay, Mr. Clark, I'll recognize you.
So, Barbara, was your answer to Terry Bishop's question, if this does not come through with the total amount tonight, that the state and the federal government are not going to approve this APR?
That was a question for Barbara.
Basically, what you're asking is a question of whether or not the landowner will accept.
Exactly.
That's your question.
The landowner, not
That's the question.
Okay. I cannot answer for the landowner.
Okay, we're still talking about an amendment here before we get to the main article. Does anybody else want to speak to Mr. Phelps's amendment to reduce the town share of this to $23,000 and the APR value to $675,000? Anybody else wish to chime in on that? Then I'm okay. Nancy.
What happens to the $44,000 from last year?
Well, take the microphone and stand up and identify yourself and ask the question, please.
Nancy Stone, 14 Jeffrey Circle. What happens to the $44,000 from last year? What happens to the $44,000 from last year?
That's what they told, that's what they're going with.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Rich Bewley from the Finance Committee. And then we're going to vote on the amendment. There'll be another chance to vote on the...
We seem to have a problem determining dollars. I just heard that we don't have a deal because the landowner may not approve. So basically, we're trying to resolve a question that even if we agree, and we approve to appropriate, it may not come to pass. And there seems to be some large disagreements in the back about exactly what's going on. It seems like somebody's math is off. But at any rate, I suggest that if you want to go ahead and vote on the amendment, that we table this thing until such a point as everybody can come together with the number that we can all agree upon, and then we'll pass it.
I am going to we're going to dispose of the amendment first, and then I will come back to you if you wish to make a motion to table, I will entertain it. But let's first do the amendment. So again, we're on Article 16, and we're amending, changing numbers. So in the first line, the 115 becomes 23,000. And then in the third line, the 905 becomes 675,000. That's the proper amendment, correct? Okay, so that's what you're voting on. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Okay, I hear a majority in favor of the amendment, so that is adopted. And now we have a gentleman that wishes to make a motion to table the amended article. Okay, would you be willing to let the landowner speak before we deal with your table? Because as soon as we table it, we're going to end the discussion. Okay, so the landowner is here. What do they wish to speak on the situation here? So, gentlemen in the back.
Thomas McLaughlin, 22 Lyon Road.
The microphone's not on.
Thomas McLaughlin, 22 Klein Road. I understand there's a lot of confusion about this, and I'll respect any decision that's made, but if I don't get my money, I'm just not going to do an APR. And I don't mean that as a threat, it's just a statement of fact. So the townsfolk need to decide whether they want it done or not. Simple as that.
What price? Okay, so now I will consider the motion to table. And is there a second to that motion? Okay, I hear a second. So we have a motion and a second to table. That's going to require a 2/3 vote to pass, but it's going to take it out of tonight's town meeting and to some future time, presumably the next special town meeting, whenever that might be. So you just need to understand what the process is. It's not a discussable motion. It just basically kills anything further for this meeting. Have I described that properly, Councilor? Yes. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to call for a vote on the motion to table Article 16 as amended. And so all in favor of tabling say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Okay, I am going to say that failed to get a 2/3 majority. So the motion to table fails. So now we're open for discussion on Article 16 as amended, the amendment you just adopted 5 minutes ago. Is there any further discussion on that? First here, and I see a hand over here. So.
I was just wondering if Barbara or the landowner, are there any options? I think the intent here is to preserve this land so it doesn't get developed. It's great agricultural property. This is an agricultural community, and I'm a big supporter of the APR program. Do we have some sort of options available so that we could address this at a special town meeting to preserve this land?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by options or additional funding sources.
I was led to believe that that the owner could reapply at some future date.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Well, there are a couple things to take into account. If we were to go forward with the project now, because of our funding cycle, the federal funding cycle, we basically, if we were to go forward now, we have to close this project by August, or the funding from the federal government and the state goes away. Okay, so that's one thing. If Mr. McLaughlin decided to himself table the project, so to speak, he would have to wait 3 years before coming and reapplying to the program, and it is about a 3-year process from the application to closing, so it would be about 6 years down the road.
I could be dead.
Me too.
The gentleman over here has been very patient waiting for me to recognize him.
Ken Blumley, 16 Babb Road. Could the landowner tell us on what price are we looking at, the 905, the 675? Or I don't know what the value is here in your mind.
Thomas McLaughlin again, 22 Klein Road. The fair market value of the property.
Tom, a little closer to your mouth, please.
The fair market value of the property is 905. The APR value, which is the difference between fair market and ag value, is 675. Is that clarify?
that answer your question?
Well,
Take another cut at it, please.
What will you take?
I'll take all I can get. $675. No one ever got enough for their land. So,
Okay, Dennis.
I make a motion to move the question.
Okay, motion to move the question. Again, as amended, the motion is to cut off debate. All in favor of cutting off debate and moving to a vote on the amended article, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. So we will go to a vote. Again, you amended the article. The numbers are in the first line, instead of 115, it's 23,000. And in line, I believe it's line 3, the APR is valued at 905. That number changes to 675,000. All in favor of Article 16 as amended, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No. Article passes. I note there are several no's, so it is certainly not unanimous. We're going to move on. Article 17, Community Preservation Committee, Old Cemetery Headstone Restoration, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $40,000 from the Community Preservation Historical Funds for the restoration and preservation of the headstones at the Old Southwick Cemetery, or take any other action relative thereto, and that's requested by the Community Preservation Committee. Again, I'll recognize the chair of the Finance Committee for their recommendation.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $40,000 in accordance with the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee.
Open for discussion on Article 17. Okay, Mr. Gunn, over here on my left. You don't have to run, Jess, just walk past.
David Gunn, 204 Hillside. I'm a chairman of the Historical Commission, and I'm very much in favor of this project, as the old cemetery headstones have been deteriorating for, well, literally hundreds of years, but obviously the state of the cemetery over the past 25 years since our last big celebration has really deteriorated tremendously. Several fallen over headstones, and these are veterans from the Revolutionary War, Civil War, that they deserve our respect and our attention to honor their place in our history and in our town. So I fully support this $40,000. We have a tremendous asset in town. Gene Thoreau is doing a tremendous job in cleaning headstones for us and undertaking this effort. This effort costs other towns much more money. This $40,000 covers a 2-year program. So expenses would be a little bit more in the very front end, less on the second year. But $40,000 for 2 years to undertake a lot of this effort, so I fully support it. Thank you.
Okay, other discussion? Whose cell phone is ringing?
Yours.
Any other discussion on Article 17? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of Article 17 as presented, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. And Jean, would you stand up and take a bow? Those volunteer efforts, it's a lot of dirty work. There's poison ivy and varmints and headstones that have been certainly not cared for very well for a long period of time. This gentleman's been out there for several years, I believe, working hard at it. So it's a tremendous mission. I know he's very passionate about it. And thank you, Chief. It's important. So let's move ahead to Article 18, Regional School District Budget. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds the sum of $11,552,752 for the Southwick Collins Granville Regional School District assessment for fiscal year 2020, commencing July 1st, 2019, and ending on June 30, 2020, or take any other action thereon, and that's requested by the Southwick Collins Granville Regional School District. And I'll ask the Finance Committee recommendation.
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,552,752 for the Southwick Collins Granville School District assessment for the fiscal year 2020.
Okay, representatives of the school district, would you like to speak to the Southwick assessment?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for hanging in there with us. The school budget this year, we're requesting...
I know you've spoken before, but if you would just introduce yourself, please.
Jen Willard, Superintendent of Schools. It's my third year, and again, thank you all. This is probably the latest we've been here, so I appreciate your stamina. This year, we're requesting $11,552,000. And the majority of that is the minimal local contribution, which means it's the minimum amount that we can ask Southwick to spend. We are asking for $190,000 over the minimum local in a discretionary line item. $160,000 of that is for Southwick's portion. We are moving to a one-to-one school district. It's an initiative we've been working on for 3 years. We've been putting a plan together, and you will see in the paperwork that was submitted that this year there's an additional $70,000 lease line item that would look different from the previous school years. Also in the documentation that we handed out, about $697,000 in fixed cost increases. We worked really hard on trying to bring a balanced budget to you. This year, it looks like, if you look at it, there's about a 3.75% increase. It's actually a 1.58% increase over the previous year because of an E&D issue that we had at the end of the previous year, and we had to use school choice revolving. So although it looks like a 3.75 increase, in actuality it's a 1.5 increase over last year's school budget.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 18. If you have a question to Superintendent Willard, we'll just direct it to her. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. Requires a majority vote. All in favor of Article 18, a Southwick assessment of $11,552,752, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. And Article 19, Regional School District Debt Authorization. To see if the town of Southwick will vote not to disapprove certain additional debt authorized by the Southwick Collins Granville Regional School Committee under a vote dated April 2nd, 2019, which reads as follows. Voted, approve authorization to incur debt by the issuance and sale of bonds or notes for the amount of $596,000 for the purchase of all items specified in the school district's fiscal year 2020 capital improvement plan as follows. They're listed out in front of you. I'm not going to read them or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the regional school district. What is the Finance Committee recommendation?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote not to disapprove Article 19.
No, you're asking them to approve Article 19. the legal wording here always throws people off a little bit, but you're being asked to ratify, approve the capital spending budget already approved by the regional school district. And each of the towns has to do that as part of the fiscal process. So that's what you have in front of you. Again, Superintendent Willard, what do you wish to say about the capital spending?
Again, in order to be more transparent, we're trying to be more specific in what it is that we're actually spending the money on. We've been working for the past 3 years with the select board, and they've been touring the schools every April vacation. And a lot of these capital improvements have come from discussions that we have had on what the best needs are and the best way to move forward with the buildings that currently the town of Southwick owns.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 19. Any questions there? Okay, Deb Harrington. We'll get the microphone down to her. You may have to do a little bit of shuttle microphone there, we'll see.
Thank you. Deb Herron, Three Shore Road. I noticed under the playground it says site improvements to mitigate clouding.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's a typo.
I noticed that too. I said, what is clouding? It's flooding. Flooding.
Okay,
Flooding.
any other questions or comments on Article 19? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Article 20, Planning Board Zoning Map Amendment. And there's a couple of Planning Board articles here. Just the same time, they've been through the appropriate hearing process with the Planning Board. They can't come before you until they've been through the appropriate hearing process. They have been, evidence has been provided, so they are cleared to come before the town meeting. So Article 20, Planning Board Zoning Map Amendment. To see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Southwick zoning map referenced in Chapter 185-5 of the Town of Southwick bylaws by redesignating certain parcels of land currently zoned residential 20, R20 to the zone of business restricted. Said land for redesignation is real estate in the Town of Southwick located along the easterly side of College Highway in the County of Camden in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as shown on the Town of Southwick Assessor's Map 27. And again, I'm going to skip the legal description. Said land is currently assessed to Waltz Realty, LLC, and portions to be rezoned are described as follows. I'm not going to read all of that. And then it says all three parcels or portions thereof to be rezoned are shown as crosshatched areas on a plan entitled Plan for Zone Change Exhibit A. And again, some legal requirements. And that's requested by James Waltz. So I'm going to ask the chair of the planning board, what was the recommendation of your committee? And if you would just introduce yourself again.
Mike Doherty, 16 Lexington Circle, Chair of the Planning Board. The Planning Board voted in favor of this amendment. And basically, it's a property that's, as you're coming up from Westfield on College Highway, it's right before you get to the Southwick Country Club. It's right past the Hash House. There's a large open field, and then there was Dr. Legaut's office, which is sort of a small house. It's that property at the end that is just residential. The other two properties, the field has business zoned, and they're basically just combining those three properties and having those all business zoned. It butts up against wetlands, which basically can't be developed right before you get to the Southwick Country Club.
So can I infer that as a motion to bring it onto the floor?
You can.
And do I hear a second? Second. Okay, motion made and seconded. Now, anything further that you wish to speak to from a planning board perspective, Mike?
That is all I have.
Okay, great. Open for discussion on Article 20.
and Griskus 6 2nd Street, are there any restrictions for businesses on this property? What type of business?
Here, Pat.
So right now, the two empty properties, let's put it that way, the first two properties are mostly, I think mostly business restricted. In the business restricted zone, you can have a bank by right. Anything else has to come before the planning board for a special permit. And so they have to go through the application process and get a special permit granted for whatever use they wanted to do. The last property, which is, and I can't remember how big it is, it's a pretty small property at the end. Right now, because the use of that property as a medical office has been discontinued for more than 2 years, that gets, the grandfather portion of that goes back and it's just now a residential 20. So that's an R20, so that can just be used for residential. So basically what they're doing is trying to change that into a business restricted area so they can use that whole property for business restricted, which again, the only thing is a bank by right and everything else has to be granted by special permit of the planning board. So I can give you at least a little bit of a background. When Dr. Walsh came in front of us, he's a dentist, and that's at least a portion of what he wants to do in that property, as he described it to us. Again, it's not required that he does that. That's how he described it to us. And maybe put a small, sort of building there which has a bunch of different, tenants in it, that he's looking for other type services. I don't think he's looking for a big tenant necessarily, is how he described it. I can only represent what he described to us.
Okay, other discussion on Article 20. Gentleman down here.
Hello. I'm Albert Ranjo, 228 Klaus Anderson Road. What I'm wondering is how this fits into the long-term planning, like a master plan, or are we just going to do this piecemeal so we could have some more strip malls, more Dollar General stores? Would that fit into the development of this, and can we just keep going up and down the College Highway and doing this?
Well, Mike, I guess that's a question to you.
Well, I'm going to defer a little bit on the master plan question because we don't really have an updated master plan. It costs a significant amount of money to get a master plan, so that's sort of outside of my pay grade, I think, at this point in time. So what we're doing, I think, is trying to assess what's coming forward in front of us, which is simply, I think, a pretty small change to this property. Again, they would have the right, if you look at the maps in those first two properties. The last property that I'm referring to is the one with the small house that used to be the doctor's office. That field, they could right now come in front of the planning board and put an application in for a business. It's not a bank, they have to come in front of us and we have a hearing and go forward. It's not so much about what they may use this for, it's just simply extending that zone a small amount so that those properties can be combined. At least my point of view personally, when it was in front of the planning board, was it doesn't really change much to that. There's businesses going along there. It doesn't really change what they could use it for. It only adds a very small portion to that extended property. And since it butts up against wetlands going into the Southwick Country Club development, it's not going to have much impact on what's developed over there. They're not going to develop those wetlands that are right dividing those two properties. So I didn't see much impact. The control over what goes there is something that is left for a public hearing down the line when they come to try to develop that property.
Other discussion on Article 20. The lady with the orange blouse.
Debbie Rancho, 228 Klaus Anderson Road. In fact, a master plan was created a number of years ago. A lot of money, you're right, it was very expensive, and it was produced. So what's preventing the planning board from presenting that master plan to the town for acceptance? It was never accepted by the town because it was stonewalled. Why not present the master plan, pass it, and follow it instead of doing piecemeal zoning changes and having just little pieces of land here and there sold off to pizza parlors and Dollar General stores?
So, I can only tell you what I know, and I'm happy to research and learn. My understanding is that the only master plan that's available right now, or at least the master plan that Southwick has, is 55 years old. I don't know if there is one that hasn't been accepted and presented. I'm happy to take a look at it. You can certainly bring it to the planning board for us to consider. I've only been the chair for a short period of time. I honestly I don't know about an unapproved master plan. The only one that I'm aware of is one that's some 55 years old. I'm aware of, there's been open space considerations, there's been things like that in the meantime, but as far as a master plan, again, I'm happy to take a look at it. But I'd also just say too that, all the things that are on here, we've had public hearings on. And so that's another way that people can come and offer their thoughts in addition to the master plan that we would be guided by.
All right, anything else on Article 20? Gentleman up in the back. Can you come down forward a little bit and help out Jess, please?
Good evening. I'm Rob Levesque from our Levesque Associates. I represent Dr. Walls, who's here with me this evening. Just wanted to clarify for the members of town meeting that Mr. Doherty and the planning board were not...
Hang on a minute, sir. Are you a resident of town?
No, sir.
Okay.
Representative.
Okay. Can I have somebody make a motion? Just introduce yourself, first of all.
Rob Levesque from our
Okay,
Levesque
Rob
Associates.
Levesque. Would somebody like to make a motion to bring this gentleman onto the floor to speak? And a second. Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the members of town meeting that Mr. Doherty and the planning board did not make this request. The request was made on behalf of Dr. Walls by our office. The reason for the request is that Mr. Walls would like to, or Dr. Walls would like to extend the use of this property so that it's contiguous. So the entire property is contiguous with the same use. Business restricted, as Mr. Doherty had explained, is very restrictive. There's only certain things you can do. Most of those are by special permit, as mentioned. We have reviewed the master plans that have been created. We've been doing work in town for over 20 years. This is in the corridor that was dictated or suggested to be business restricted. Obviously, we're on 10 and 202, so if you're going to have business anywhere in town, it's probably there. The property just to the north that Dr. Walls owns is business restricted. The property just to the south, as Mr. Doherty mentioned, is a wetland resource area. So it didn't make sense for Dr. Walls to have the American business and then a very small residential piece. It makes sense to have it all business restricted. The residential piece could probably yield 2 to 3 lots, maybe a little subdivision. That really doesn't make sense with business just to the north. So it made sense to us, rather than rezone the business off of College Highway, which is really your business corridor, to rezone the residential off of College Highway. That was the thought. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion on Article 20? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. Requires a 2/3 vote for a zoning bylaw change. All in favor of Article 20, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. No. I'm going to declare that a 2/3 majority vote. Are there 5 people that would question my categorization of the vote? Hearing none, it's a 2/3 vote. Article 21, Planning Board deletion of temporary moratorium on the sale and distribution of marijuana. See if the town will vote to amend Chapter 185 of the Code of the Town of Southwick by deleting the Chapter 185-23.3 in its entirety, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the code be made to make it consistent with the numbering format and sequencing of the code of the town of Southwick, or take any other action relative thereto, also requested by the planning board, excuse me. And Mike, do you want to go ahead and make a recommendation there?
The planning board recommends Article 21, the deletion of the temporary moratorium from Chapter 185, 23.3, and would make a motion in favor of that deletion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Anything further you wish to add to that or take questions?
I would just say it's just a housekeeping matter. This is, we've already passed the bylaws of the medical and recreational marijuana. This is simply just removing temporary moratoriums, which have already passed.
Okay. Any further discussion on Article 21? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of Article 21, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Article 22, Planning Board deletion of temporary moratorium on registered marijuana dispensaries. To see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 185 of the Code of the Town of Southwick by deleting the Chapter 185-23.4 in its entirety, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the code be made to make it consistent with the numbering format and sequencing of the Code of the Town of Southwick, or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the Planning Board. Go ahead.
The planning board would recommend the deletion of the temporary moratorium in Chapter 185, 23.4, and would make a motion in favor of such a deletion.
Is there a second? Open for discussion on Article 22. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of Article 22, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Article 23, recycling contract. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a 10-year contract commencing on July 1, 2020 with a qualified vendor selected by Mass DEP through a competitive bid process for recycling processing services for the town, subject to the select board's determination that the contract is in the best interest of the town and subject to town meeting approval in the spring of 2020 for funding these services or take any other action relative thereto. That's requested by the select board. Is there a finance committee recommendation? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to bring it onto the floor? And a second? Okay. Select board wish to speak to Article 23.
Mr. Moderator, this is necessary for the town to continue its recycling program with a destination to bring the recyclables. In Springfield, right now, we bring them over to the MRF. It's on Bernie Ave. And procurement laws and mass general laws require us to get this reauthorization for town meeting for a long-term agreement to have a destination to send our recyclables.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 23. Discussion there? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. And that's passed unanimously. I'd like to say two things before we dissolve the meeting. First of all, thank you to all of you, especially those of you who stayed to the end and helped us get through all this. Town meeting's all about our right to participate and govern our own affairs. It's really what makes us Americans. And the second thing is I am going to announce that if there are folks that are interested in serving on the Finance Committee, I would love to hear from you. I don't know what I've got for vacancies, but I certainly have 2 associate members. I would love to appoint qualified people to those positions, but certainly anybody who's interested, please contact me. All of my contact information is in the annual town report, and it's pretty well out there anyway. Most of you know where I live. So again, thank you, everyone. I will take a motion to dissolve the meeting. And a second. Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Since we've already, or 67,500. Since we've already appropriated last year 44,500, we should amend this article. Someone from the Community Preservation Committee would be the appropriate one to amend the article to appropriate an additional $23,000, not the $115,000. Thank you.
So Marcus, let me just clarify. You're asking or suggesting or something that somebody else make a motion to amend. That wasn't a motion to amend on your part.
That's correct. That's correct. I think if town council could chime in, it's not appropriate for just someone from the town meeting floor to amend the CPC motion.
You can amend it down. You can amend it.
So, Marcus, you may amend down, and I will rule that that's within scope. Do you wish to do that?
Yes, I wish to amend it from 115,000 down to 23,000.
Okay. And if you can give that to the town clerk in writing before we leave here tonight, I would appreciate that. But I will approve of the amendment as being within scope. And again, as I understand it, the amendment is to Article 16 would be in the motion to change in both the article and the motion, to change the number 115,000 to 23,000. Am I correct? Okay. So now we're open for discussion on the amendment to Article 16. Mr. Grant.
Point of order, just.
Oh, wait a minute. I didn't get a second on that. I'll recognize you. Is there a second? Okay, I got a second from PP.
Does the 905,000 have to be changed now to 675?
Okay. Good point. Mr. Article Petitioner here, you're willing to change that? The number 900 and, where is it?
Yes, I'll amend my amendment to...
No, we're going to get the amendment straight here. Yeah. We're not going to amend it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the amendment would include reducing the APR value to $675,000 from $905,000.
So again, I will approve that as within scope. So discussion on the amendment. We're basically taking the proposal that you're going to vote on in a few minutes is to take those numbers down to be consistent, as I understand it, with prior practice on APR properties in the town of Southwick. That's right. Yep. Okay. Mr. Mish.
I have a question. Is that going to be enough to cover what the federal government is matching? So maybe
You don't have to put anything in.
I was asking the lady up there, the gal. I didn't.
Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, just.
Last name's Hobson. Your question was, we were asking for the match from the town and additional money from the federal government. So the Commonwealth has already committed, or at this point is committed to $400,500 towards the project. So we're requesting an additional $115,000 from the federal government and an additional $115,000 from the town.
So we need that $115,000 to make this go?
Yes.
No. No.
Yes, you
Okay.
do.
I think that's,
I think we're hearing a yes from Ms. Hobson. Am I correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
Oh, you gotta
Anything else
clarify
to
that.
say? And then I'll recognize somebody else to give a contrary view, but we're not gonna, chip in and have a general discussion here. So, do you have anything else to offer on that, Ms. Hobson?
Yep, I guess just a final thing to say is that this piece of property, if you're familiar with it, it is on North Long Yard. It's just an absolutely beautiful piece of property. We look at the soil types and the management of property, and basically we look at prime farmland soils, and this property is about 98% prime farmland soils. So from a Department of Agriculture point of view, you don't get much better. Thank you.
Okay, so somebody else, okay, Mr. Clark, I'll recognize you.
So, Ms. Barber, was your answer to Terry Bishop's question, if this does not come through with the total amount tonight, that the state and the federal government are not going to approve this APR?
Yeah. That was a question for Barbara.
Basically, what you're asking is a question of whether or not the landowner will accept.
Exactly.
That's your question.
The landowner, not
That's the question.
Okay. I cannot answer for the landowner.
Okay, we're still talking about an amendment here before we get to the main article. Does anybody else want to speak to Mr. Phelps's amendment to reduce the town share of this to $23,000 and the APR value to $675,000? Anybody else wish to chime in on that? Then I'm done. Okay, Nancy.
What happens to the 44,000 from last year?
Well, take the microphone and stand up and identify yourself and ask the question, please.
Nancy Stone, 14 Jeffrey Circle. What happens to the $44,000 from last year? What happens to the $44,000 from last year?
That's going to go with
Okay, I'm going to recognize Rich Fioli from the Finance Committee. And then we're going to vote on the amendment. We'll get another chance to vote on the...
We seem to have a problem determining dollars. I just heard that we don't have a deal because the landowner may not approve. So basically, we're trying to resolve a question that even if we agree, and we approve to appropriate, it may not come to pass. And there seems to be some large disagreements in the back about exactly what's going on. It seems like somebody's math is off. But at any rate, I suggest that if you want to go ahead and vote on the amendment, that we table this thing until such a point as everybody can come together with the number that we can all agree upon, and then we'll pass it.
I am going to we're going to dispose of the amendment first, and then I will come back to you if you wish to make a motion to table. I will entertain it. But let's first do the amendment. So again, we're on Article 16, and we're amending, changing numbers. So in the first line, the 115 becomes 23,000, and then in the third line, the 905 becomes 675,000. That's the proper amendment, correct? Okay, so that's what you're voting on. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Okay, I hear a majority in favor of the amendment, so that is adopted. And now we have a gentleman that wishes to make a motion to table the amended article. Okay, would you be willing to let the landowner speak before we deal with your table. Because as soon as we table it, we're going to end the discussion. Okay. So the landowner is here. What, do they wish to speak on the situation? So gentlemen in the back.
Thomas McLaughlin, 22 Klein Road.
The microphone's not on.
Thomas McLaughlin, 22 Klein Road. I understand there's a lot of confusion about this, and I'll respect any decision that's made, but if I don't get my money, I'm just not going to do an APR. And I don't mean that as a threat, it's just a statement of fact. So the townsfolk need to decide whether they want it done or not. Simple as that.
What price? Okay, so now I will consider the motion to table. And is there a second to that motion? Okay, I hear a second. So we have a motion and a second to table. That's going to require a 2/3 vote to pass, but it's going to take it out of tonight's town meeting and to some future time, presumably the next special town meeting, whenever that might be. So you just need to understand what the process is. It's not a discussable motion. It just basically kills anything further for this meeting. Have I described that properly, Councilor? Yes. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to call for a vote on the motion to table Article 16 as amended. And so all in favor of tabling say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Okay, I am going to say that failed to get a 2/3 majority. So the motion to table fails. So now we're open for discussion on Article 16 as amended, the amendment you just adopted 5 minutes ago. Is there any further discussion on that? First here, and I see a hand over here. So.
I was just wondering if Barbara or the landowner, are there any options? I think the intent here is to preserve this land so it doesn't get developed. It's great agricultural property. This is an agricultural community. And I'm a big supporter of the APR program. Do we have some sort of options available so that we could address this at a special town meeting to preserve this land?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by options or additional funding sources.
I was led to believe that the owner could reapply at some future date.
Oh, okay, I see what you. Well, there are a couple things to take into account. If we were to go forward with the project now, because of our funding cycle, the federal funding cycle, we basically, if we were to go forward now, we have to close this project by August, or the funding from the federal government and the state goes away. Okay, so that's one thing. If Mr. McLaughlin decided to himself table the project, so to speak, he would have to wait 3 years before coming and reapplying to the program, and it is about a 3-year process from the application.
Thanks, Jackie. Costs for the powder mill site improvement costs were $678,000. Funding sources are $678,000.
Okay.
Can you just, to help clarify?
I'll clarify. Because I'm working off of what Mr. Poole presented to the CPC, whereas there's $335,000 that were funded, $11,000 from fundraising. So if you put the $228,500 and the $140,000 from the CPC that's up for vote tonight, that's $714,500.
So we have 183.6 from previous capital, 115 from residual funds from the MSBA project, 140 anticipated Southwick CPC, 11 from the PAWS, which is the PTO fundraising, and 228.5 included in this year's capital request.
Okay, because what was presented to the CPC was $155,000 came from the sewer project that you were putting towards this. $100,000 was previously approved in 2017. There was $80,000 from paving that was approved for 2017. That came up to the $335,000 that was in your presentation. Then you add the $228,500 and the $11,000, that's $574,500. You add 140, that's $714,500. Minus $678, that's $36,500 overfunded. So you must have moved some money around after you did the presentation to the CPC.
Well, that was in January, and what we do as the project evolves and we get more information from Ty and Bond, we give you the more accurate information the closer we get. So the 678.1 or the 678 is the cost of the project with a contingency of 102.5.
Okay, Ty and Bond's numbers didn't change. It was the numbers that you presented that changed. And on top of this, when the CPC approved the $140,000, since this is a regional project, we also asked that you go to the other towns and to their CPC to try to request funds, and to my knowledge, that never happened.
Karen, we did ask for legal advice on that because we weren't sure if other town CPCs could go towards a project outside of their communities. We found out too late in the project that it could. That same question came up in Granville. Not something that we didn't try to explore. We had to make sure we had the correct legal advice before we went further.
Okay. Then I would like to ask that this be voted down, and then when the project has its cost overruns and you eat into your $103,000, then you come back to the CPC. We will approve funds to go towards this project, but I can't see overfunding this project.
If people could just look at the Powder Mill site improvement costs on the slideshow, would have the costs in
I'm
there.
gonna, Karen's yielding the floor. If you would like to speak to the project, I will recognize you now, but I want to just provide some separation. So if you'd like to briefly speak to the project, go ahead, Superintendent.
Sure, and I can have Steve Presnell as well speak to it. It's been an extensive project. We've worked with Ty and Bond. We've broken down the cost to be as transparent as possible in the slideshow presentation that we handed out tonight. What the parking lot would cost, the water mitigation, the playground, the grounds improvement, the design fee, the miscellaneous costs, and the contingency fee. Comes to a total of $678,000. And the funding sources, again, as transparent as possible, 183.6 is from unspent capital, 100,000 came from FY18 playground that was approved, and from fiscal year 19 unspent paving. We did get 115,000 of residual funds from the MSBA project. We weren't exactly sure what that exact number was when we came to the CPC. The finalized numbers weren't there. We made our best guess. We do anticipate approval for the playground for our students at Powder Mill for 140 tonight. The PTO has fundraised 11,000, and we are asking for 228.5 in this year's capital budget. Capital budget was approved in both Talent and Granville in support of this project for our students. We really need to fix the water situation outside and have an ADA accessible playground for all of our students to be able to play on outside at recess.
Okay, other discussion on Article 15? Question or comment? Okay, Mr. Waller.
John Wally, 38 Foster Road. I would also suggest we vote this down
until we get participation from the other two towns' community preservation funds.
Other discussion on Article 15? Lady right here, yeah. Please.
Kelly Parker, 25 Castle Street. I don't understand why this isn't coming out of the school budget and how this meets Community Preservation Committee requirements. I don't understand why this is coming out of CPC. If someone could explain how it meets the criteria for that, I'd appreciate that.
You want to tackle that one? Chair of the committee. Let's get the microphone to town council.
The law allows for CPC funds to be used for playgrounds and recreation.
Other discussion? Gentleman in the center.
Mike Doherty, 16 Lexington Circle. I'm the chair of the planning board. Just so everybody knows, this has come before the planning board already. They've been granted a special permit. The special permit contains language that requires during non-school hours that this be accessible to the entire community.
Other discussion on Article 15? Ruth? And you don't have to stand up every time, unless you wish to.
I just had a lot of stuff on my lap the last time. I just want to remind everybody that the CPC funds comes from people who own homes in Southwick, and after their first $1,000, they pay 3% on the remainder of the value of their home. I don't know if I said that clearly enough, but this year we have 100 homes being built in Southwick. That means you're going to get a lot more money for the CPC. Plus, the state has increased the amount they're going to be matching for your fund. So once again, the CPC is going to have plenty of money in this next fiscal year.
Okay, other discussion on Article 15?
I hear what Karen said and what John said. I'm a little concerned if we delay this project. As we know, Powder Middle School is now a different age group, and they don't have access to a good facility, and I think it's very important. And I think we also need to remember that Granville and Tolland share would be very small. And I appreciate everything that's been said, but I hope that we would pass this, get this project through, because Southwick, our region, I think we pay 86, 87% already, Jen?
83.1.
Okay. So,
What is the number? I'm not sure.
83.1.
83.1 is the Southwick percentage.
but when we started this project, you know, we realized that this wasn't just going to be for the children, but also it's going to be built near the track that was donated. This is going to be, and we talked about it in our open space planning committee that's going on. This is going to be a facility for the whole community. So this is going to be something of great benefit. I understand what people are saying, but if we delay this, it would necessitate another special town meeting, which would probably end up costing us additional money that we're not going to make up from Granville and Tolland. So please consider that.
Okay, lady here in the center. Nope, we've got one coming the other way, and thank you, Jess.
First of all, I think a $700,000 playground is a lot of money for a playground. I'm a special ed physical therapist myself, and I think the ADA accommodations are going to be great. But I think we just need some accountability from the school department, and if it is going to be over $36,000, let's just wait until that money is allocated from someplace else. Maybe we don't need it. Maybe we can use it for something else. And I think, you know, we're talking about being fiscally responsible. I think the school needs to be fiscally responsible also when they come and ask, because she's going to ask for another $250,000 in the capital improvement project. So I think we can do it in part, Russ. I don't think it all needs to be done one and done. I think we won't need a special town meeting. Why can't we just we can revisit it next year? And we can, John Mullen had a great idea, and so did Chris Pratt last year. The water problem, now that the sewer's in, we could put the filtration holes in, the water would drain from that playground area, so it would be accessible through the rainy season, through the springtime. Chris Pratt had also mentioned last year during the presentation to extend the grade of that and push the water towards the new highway out there. And that was another great idea by Chris, and I think we have some other things on the table that could work, and we could maybe hold on to that 36,000.
Okay, I think everybody's been heard. I'm going to take one more in the back, and then we're going to do the vote. And I guess it's Mr. Presnov.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just some history on the Powder Mill Playground project. The project was originally included in the scope of the MSBA project. That project was initially voted down by the voters in Southwick. It was approved originally by Granville and Tolland. In order to make the project more palatable for the residents in Southwick, we were given a second opportunity by the Mass School Building Authority to bring it back to the voters. We did scope reduction, and some of the scope reduction that occurred was the removal of a playground project for Powder Mill School as well as the Woodland School. There were other items, changes to HVAC and some lighting. Essentially, that was the end of the playground project for the immediate time. The project, as it's designed right now, is not simply replacing playground equipment. It is a comprehensive project that looks at the parking lot, adds drainage to that parking lot, which mitigates the water situation, the flooding that we have, provides for accessible playground equipment, more age appropriate. It adds some additional lighting to the project, to the site, includes repairs and renovations to the basketball courts. We also have the designer fee, the engineering fees involved, miscellaneous, and then a little over $100,000 in contingency funds. So it is a rather comprehensive project, but that's what's needed in order to make it work at that site.
Okay, Chelsea, I will call on you. I know you're a member of the regional school committee, so go ahead. Okay. Please stand.
Hi.
Please stand.
Chelsea Berry, 106 Coast Hill Road. I'm also on the school committee. One of the biggest things you can see is at Powder Mill is this pond, this beautiful pond that our children get to gaze at their recess. It is also the face of that school when tons of schools come and use our tracks, and they get to see a swamped playground. It is not just a playground, though. That water cannot just sit there. We all know water is the most powerful source on the earth. And excuse me if I'm babbling, I have a really bad cold. But people can have great ideas, but we had real engineers go in and design a plan that will fix the water drainage. Those kind of things aren't fixed cheaply. We just heard and appropriated funds for DPW. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars for water to be moved properly. Our kids, they need this. Our community is going to benefit from it. We're not asking to raise taxes. It's CPC funds. I really ask that you vote for this. I think it's a great investment and that you won't regret it. It's going to be beautiful.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote on Article 15. All right.
Given the discussion on both, and it's a valid point about having the other communities participate from their CPC, and this seems to be slightly over budgeted, rather than just cause a direct up or down vote on this particular item, I'm suggesting that some thought be given to a floor amendment to slightly reduce this total amount. That would allow this article to potentially proceed as amended and potentially get a positive vote at town meeting floor so that the project can proceed.
as it's intended based on the way it seems to be slightly over budgeted right now. If they can go back to Granville and Tallinn to their CPC, great, but reduce the amount in this, and I'm putting it out there as a suggestion. I'm not making that amendment. I'm putting it out there as a suggestion to those people that suggested that it be voted down, and causing us to potentially either have to take this up next year or at a special.
Aaron? Okay, you may make that motion. I'm going to need it in writing. And what I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to suggest this to all of you on the town meeting floor, just so that we keep moving, is that perhaps you and the regional school folks kind of put your heads together, come up with a balanced number here, so that we're not, we don't have an over appropriation. And we'll move on to Article 16 in the meanwhile. And then when you come back, if you can make the appropriate amendment. Or are you comfortable making it as is?
I'm comfortable to go down to $100,000. Take away the 36.5, it's overfunded. I just don't know if John Wally wants to put a number to Granville and Tallinn. So are you on board with the $100,000?
Okay.
Then I'd like to make an amendment for $100,000, not $140.
I'm still going to require you to give that to me in writing, but I'm
I don't know
going
what that
to
entails,
repeat
but I'll
it
do
as
it.
I understand it. So you are making a motion to amend Article 15 to read the sum of $100,000 from fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Funds. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So is there a second to that amendment? Okay. I will rule that as a valid amendment. It's certainly within the scope of what was proposed in the warrant, so it's a valid amendment. Is there discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote on the amendment. So all we're doing right now is voting to change the number from 140 to 100,000. So all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Okay, so the ayes have it on the amendment. Now we're back to discussion on Article 15 as amended to say if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000. Is there any further discussion? This has been well discussed, folks. Any final words here? Seeing that, I'm going to call the vote. So again, you're voting on an amended article at a number of 100,000. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And that carries unanimously. So we move on to Article 16, Community Preservation Committee, APR, North Long Yard Road. See if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $115,000 from fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Open Space Fund and General Unreserved Fund towards the purchase of an agricultural preservation restriction of 58.65 acres of farmland on North Long Yard Road. The APR is valued at $905,000. The state of Massachusetts APR program is matching the $115,000. Project site, and it goes on to list the property description at the Registry of Deeds. I'm not going to read through all of that. Requested by the Community Preservation Committee. What is the Finance Committee recommendation on Article 16? Wait, I'm sorry. There is a proposed amendment on Article 16, and I'm going to ask that we consider it just as a correction, no need to amend, because it just proposes to replace the language the state of Massachusetts APR program is matching with the federal APR program is matching. It doesn't change the outcome of what you're being asked to do. Unless there's any objection, I'm going to accept it as a corrected language on Article 16. Is there any objection to doing that? Hearing none, we'll correct the wording on that. What is the recommendation on the corrected warrant article?
The Finance Committee recommends that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $115 in accordance with the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee as amended.
That's correct. $115.
I'll reread that.
For clarification. Open for discussion. Dennis?
Chapter 2. Yeah, Dennis Clark, 75 Fred Jackson Road. I am a Conservation Commission Coordinator for the Southwick Conservation Commission for over 15 years now. Currently the Chair of the Open Space and Recreation Committee, former Vice Chair for the Community Preservation Committee for over 10 years, unpaid consultant for the Community Preservation Committee for quite a few years. I'm a great proponent of APRs. I brought all 12 of them since 2003 to the CPC. Personally been involved with every one of them. It's a great program because we only pay 10% and the state pays the other 90%. I'm very familiar with this article we have today because I brought it to last year's town meeting and it was voted on, and the town appropriated $44,500 for this APR for this property. Now, it's very confusing because it came back again this year. We don't know if I guess it was appraised again, the second appraisal was done. And it says here on it says the APR value is $905,000, which is not correct. It's not the APR value. And even if it was, at 10% of that, it's certainly not $115,000. Now, I'm in favor of APRs. This has already been approved. There's no reason to give them more money for it. I think this is being abused, this process at this point, and I just don't like to see it abused. We already voted on it. It was already agreed upon. The state is not going to give them any more money. They said if the town wants to give them more money, then yeah, go ahead and give it to them. But, you know, there was a second appraisal done. The first one was for $445,000. And the second one, I'm not exactly sure because it says $905,000, but I'm not exactly sure because this isn't correct. But it's, there should have been a third appraisal done. And when it's over double the money, I've never had an appraisal come in that's been that far off, and we haven't had at least a review appraisal done on this. We can let if Barbara Hopkins wants to elaborate further on this, I'd be happy to hear it, but I think this is a grievous injustice to the APR system. We've had people come in, Nassau Benny, the Meadowview Farms. They got appraised for more than we could give them, and they did a charitable deduction, and they gave that money up. We had the Cowards come in on College Highway. Theirs was appraised for more money than we could give them because it wasn't approved by the state, and we refused to give it to them. I don't know how this could possibly be fair at this point to give this kind of money out at this time, especially when it's not right, not even correct.
Okay, other discussion on Article 16. Marcus Phelps.
Marcus Phelps, 28 Depot Street. I have a question for the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. Are you requesting an additional $115,000 added to the money that we appropriated under Article 14 last year of $44,500?
Yes, that's what the board voted on. That's what the CPC committee voted on. Is Barbara Hobson here?
She is.
Barbara, could you elaborate a little bit on how this process worked and clarify it for us?
I will recognize Barbara to answer, I think, a couple of questions here that have been raised. She is a representative of the state, the Massachusetts State Department of Agriculture, who administers the program. So welcome to the meeting, and please provide us some explanation.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to clarify some of the numbers here. Indeed, the number 905 in the warrant article is incorrect. The APR value is $675,000, not $905. And basically, this project has been, I think, in the queue for 2.5 years now, and we initially, the Department of Agricultural Resources, through the APR program, initially had an appraisal done on the 58-plus acres that came in with an APR value of $445,000. At that point last year, we came to town meeting for 10%, which is the standard request that we have, local contribution from CPC funding. During the course of, we have to, our appraisals basically are only good for a one-year period. So by state law and also by the federal requirements, and we do partner with the federal government, that we're required to do what's called a supplemental appraisal review. And the supplemental appraisal review that we did on this project showed that there was a $230,000 increase in value of the property. And that's based on a bunch of things, but some comparable sales in town. So seeing that there was a $230,000 increase, we, the department, we went to the federal government, basically through their agricultural lands easement program, and requested from the federal government an additional $115,000 in funding. They did, they agreed to go ahead with that, so we came back to the town of Southwick for a match of $115,000. So that's basically how we get to the numbers.
Okay, Marcus, follow up on that, please. I think you got to keep the microphone back there. Thank you, Jess.
Marcus Felt, 28 Depot Street. So the response to my first question from the chairman of the CPC was that the monies would be added together from last year and then what's being requested this year. So that comes to $159,500. And that's way more than the 10% of the new appraised value of $675,000. 10% of that is $67,500.
And the numbering of the code be made to make it consistent with the numbering format and sequencing of the code of the town of Southwick, or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the planning board. Go ahead.
The planning board would recommend the deletion of the temporary moratorium in chapter 185, 23.4, and we're making a motion in favor of such a deletion.
Is there a second? Open for discussion on Article 22. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of Article 22, please say aye. Aye. And opposed, say no. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Article 23, recycling contract. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a 10-year contract commencing on July 1, 2020 with the qualified vendor selected by Mass DEP through a competitive bid process for recycling processing services for the town, subject to the select board's determination that the contract is in the best interest of the town and subject to town meeting approval in the spring of 2020 for funding these services or take any other action relative thereto. That's requested by the select board. Is there a finance committee recommendation? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to bring it onto the floor? And a second? Okay. Select board wish to speak to Article 23.
Mr. Moderator, this is necessary for the town to continue its recycling program with a destination to bring the recyclables. In Springfield, right now we bring them over to the berth. It's on Bernie Ave. And procurement laws and Mass General laws require us to get this reauthorization for town meeting for a long-term agreement to have a destination to send our recyclables.
Okay, open for discussion on Article 23. Discussion there? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, say no. And that's passed unanimously. I'd like to say two things before we dissolve the meeting. First of all, thank you to all of you, especially to those of you who stayed to the end and helped us get through all this. Town meeting's all about our right to, participate and govern our own affairs. It's really what makes us Americans. And the second thing is I am going to announce that if there are folks that are interested in serving on the Finance Committee, I would love to hear from you. I don't know what I've got for vacancies, but I certainly have 2 associate members. I would love to appoint qualified people to those positions, but certainly anybody who's interested, please contact me. All of my contact information is in the annual town report, and it's pretty well out there anyway. Most of you know where I live. So again, thank you, everyone. I will take a motion to dissolve the meeting. And a second. Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.